That's okay.
Okay, you want to just tell them they're good.
Mayor,
Yep, ready.
anytime you're ready. Anytime.
So we're live.
Yes.
Thank you. Welcome to the April 28th special meeting for the Newport Beach City Council. At this time, we're going to go ahead and call Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Herdman. Councilmember
Here.
Dixon.
Here.
Councilmember Muldoon.
Present.
Councilmember Brenner.
Here.
Councilmember Duffield. He will be arriving shortly, I believe. Mayor Pro Tem Avery.
Here.
And Mayor O'Neill.
Yes, I'm here as well. Well, thank you very much. It's not on our agenda, but we always start our meetings with an invocation and the pledge. So tonight, or this afternoon, I've asked Councilmember Dixon the invocation. So I will be leading the pledge
Now or tonight?
right now, please.
Oh, oh my. All right. Hold on. Hold on. I put it away. Hold on just a second. I wasn't prepared to do it right this second, but I'm ready to do it. Hold on. All right. All right, we all stand or prepared. The creator of our earth, we pray for care and healing to all those who have contracted COVID-19 and comfort to those who have lost loved ones during this pandemic. For those who are particularly vulnerable, we pray for safety and protection. For those who all experience fear or anxiety, we pray for peace of mind and spirit. We pray for public policies and healthcare solutions that will keep us safe and stem the tide of this horrible disease. We pray for all public officials and decision makers, including ourselves, for wisdom and guidance as we make critical decisions for the future welfare of our beloved city, and for our country and all of her inhabitants, that they remain safe and secure during these difficult economic times. Grant us peace, comfort, healing, and hope. In the Lord's name, amen.
Amen.
Please face toward a flag and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States
Of the United States of America.
and to
the
which
republic
it stands,
for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you very much. So as everyone can tell, we are meeting virtually like all other city councils in the state of California right now. So we appreciate technical issues, but certainly appreciate everyone who's watching us. This is a special meeting. We are going to be taking it all under one item. There are 3 different resolutions to be considered. The first resolution will be addressing, let's see. So actually, I would like to do just a couple of clarifications. So just for the council to know how we're going to run this. We're going to be taking each resolution in order, and then if there are any council questions or comments or clarifications, we'll make sure that we address it then. We're going to go to public comment after we do that. We have public comment. That's going to be limited to 90 minutes. In those 90 total minutes, each speaker will have up to 2 minutes to speak. In the interest of balancing our time for public comment and deliberation, I have consulted our city attorney on those time limitations. Unless we have any objections, I'd actually like to take the first 2 resolutions together, only for council questions and comments, The first resolution addresses the formation of a city council ad hoc committee to review and support the reopening of local businesses. And the second resolution supports the Orange County Board of Supervisors' efforts to address commercial openings. So what I'm looking at in that one, I'd like to just briefly explain the ad hoc committee concept. So I had a handful of questions about why members of the public weren't added on to that right away. I think everyone here has a pretty good understanding of the MADI Act. So the issue right now is that the city of Newport Beach, at least on the business ad hoc issue, things are happening so fast. Even this morning, the Orange County Board of Supervisors was addressing this issue. And so we need to be able to act quickly as they progress and as the state progresses. Even Governor Newsom was mentioning his discussions about weeks, not months, and discussions on the business reopenings. So I wanted to make that point because if we went through a full-blown process of having citizen participation as a formal member on a committee, we need to go through MADI Act and potential interviews and take a bit of time. So that was the thought process behind making sure that we had council members only on this ad hoc committee. Are there any questions about that thought?
People are having a little trouble hearing you, Will.
All right.
That's what I'm hearing.
Okay. Well, that's not usual, so I'll speak up. But are there any questions on that particular resolution or comments? Okay. So on the second one, where we're talking about the resolution supporting the Orange County Board of Supervisors' efforts to address commercial reopening, I hope everyone had a chance to read through it. It's a fairly short resolution. Were there any questions or comments on that before we went to public comment on that item? Oh, all right then. All right, then I suspect we'll have comments on the next item, which is the beaches. There are a lot of people who always ask the question about how many emails we got on a particular item. We got a lot of emails on this particular item. Right now, we're counting over 1,000 emails on this particular item. And there's always kind of a curiosity factor, how many emails on either side. Our city clerk has been spending the day printing them and making sure they're part of the public packet, and then also making sure that they have tallied them. And so they've counted 664 in terms of keeping writing in to say that they like the beaches to stay open, and 391 who would like to see them closed. And there are, of course, variations on all of those, but people always ask, so we're going to share that. So on this particular item, we don't have a staff presentation, but I do have a presentation that I'd like to at least make sure I'm talking about. And so we're going to kind of open that up, and then so I'd like to explain some of the thought process, just so I know. Can you all see this? Can you see the PowerPoint now? Great. Okay. This picture, which I'm going to come back to, this picture was actually taken by our police chief on Saturday, and so I just want to come back around to make sure we're talking about we're having a good conversation amongst all of ourselves. So the current virus has no doubt encircled the world with fear, and part of that enormous world is our home in Newport Beach. It's where we live, it's where we work, and where we have the most impact. It's also where we should feel most comfortable to talk to one another, and so I'm really happy that we're able to do that today. Each member of our wonderful community is worried, and they're emotional about COVID-19's effects, the physical, the fiscal, the psychological effects on themselves, their families, their friends, their neighbors. The people that you have elected to guide and administer Newport Beach are in that very same long line of concerned people. As your mayor, I assure you that every one of us on the city council understands and feels deeply the trust you've placed in us to listen, to observe, to study, to consult, to diagnose, and then to act appropriately and in the city's best interests. And I can assure you that neither ego nor arrogance can ever be a part of our formula for that kind of decision making. So I'd like to explain my thought process throughout these past couple of months on open spaces, whether they're parks, beaches, or sidewalks. We're elected to consider our whole community health and the effects of any restrictions that we place on our residents. And so we've looked to guidelines. So for example, one guideline is is the California Coastal Commission that oversees all of California's coastline, the restrictions and the access. Their guidance to local elected officials throughout this COVID-19 crisis has been recreational beach and coastal access also play important roles in maintaining mental and emotional health, especially during times of stress. Last year, the National Institute on Health, which is part of the United States Department of Health and Human Services, published a paper that states, quote, research has linked social isolation and loneliness to higher risks for a variety of physical and mental conditions, high blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, a weakened immune system, anxiety, depression, cognitive decline, Alzheimer's disease, and even death. Councilmember Dixon and I spent time interviewing leading physicians at Hoag twice in the past couple of weeks. This clip, which I've come to find out is difficult to hear through WebEx, this clip is actually our first interview, and it gives a good example of why we need to stay focused on the whole community health. So, because I know that this is going to be difficult to hear, I'm going to just pause right. I'm going to pause right there and just say that one of the leading physicians over at Hoag is Dr. Michael Brandt-Zawadsky. Dr. Brandt-Zawadsky, who goes by BZ, is also on the Orange County committee to try to work through the issues of reopening our economy. During his interview, the point that he made was the busiest service we have in the hospital today is our addiction service and our mental health services. They're full. The phone lines are ringing like never before we've seen. Our Aspire program, the program that we have designed for after-school resiliency training for high school kids who have issues with anxiety and other mental issues, it's full. And we have the longest waiting list that we've ever heard. So while I have this platform, and I think a lot of people are watching right now, I do want to point this out. We've unfortunately seen an incredible spike in calls to emotional distress hotlines, to suicide hotlines. And so if you are watching this and you feel like you are carrying too much of a burden that you just can't unload, you have resources available to you. You have people who will talk you through what life is throwing your way. And so I want to make sure that I put this up on the screen so that we'd be able to say that to whomever really needed it. Now, people have wondered if we stay in contact with public health experts, and the answer is emphatically yes. So this was actually from another interview this past week where Councilmember Dixon and I interviewed another round of 3 doctors, the common denominator here being Dr. BZ. So we asked them, how is Hoag's bed capacity? How are you doing in terms of treating COVID patients? And keeping in mind that Hoag has both an Irvine and a Newport Beach campus, I wanted to point out the answer to that question. Dr. BZ said, let me give you some numbers. We have seen as of yesterday approximately 100 patients since the beginning, since the very first patient that you mentioned. And we saw the very first patient in California, the second on the West Coast, Washington was the first, and the third in the United States. This virus has been with us since late January at least. That's when our patients showed up, and probably since late December. Of the 100 patients that we have seen, what he called the peak, the amount of patients that we have had in the hospital at any one time was 25. I asked him, is that true for both campuses? He said, that is to the total for 2 campuses. Hoag Hospital Irvine has 75 beds, and Hoag Newport has up to 400 if you choose to expand it. So to the point of capacity, the worst day was 25, the one day of COVID patients. As of Monday, that was last Monday, for the past 4 days, we were between 9 and 12 patients, some discharged, some coming in. So from 25 down to 9 and 12, we have seen a drop in the number of patients requiring hospitalization. Our staff is in constant contact with our county's public health agency, and we're in daily conversations with Hoag Hospital, which brings us to this last weekend. So I first want to put crowd size into context because I saw a lot of discussion in the media about what that crowd size meant. So to put crowd size into context, July 4th, which is the holiday that keeps getting referenced in media, last 5 July 4ths, we saw 115,000 people, 130,000, 120,000, 125,000 beachgoers in a single day. That's the 4th of July in Newport Beach. And in this past weekend, we saw 40,000 beachgoers on Friday, 40,000 on Saturday, and 10,000 throughout each day. And according to our lifeguards, the size of that crowd was considered right at the top end of what a normal April weekend would be like with good weather in past years. Of course, though, nothing feels normal right now. And it was the first weekend. So this was very clearly a shock to the system for us. It was a shock to the system for our residents. And yes, we all saw the national press. We saw the side photos that certainly made it look like,
Yeah.
So we saw the photos that did make it look like people were on top of one another. And so I just want to point this out. One of these photos was the photo that I put at the beginning. The other photo is the one that I haven't shown yet, but both of these photos were taken on Saturday by our police chief, who was in our police helicopter going up and down the coast. And I'd like to point this one out too. This was a post from the Huntington Beach Police Department that they posted on Sunday, and they posted aerial photos, I assume taken from their helicopter as well. And their comments about people, by and large, social distancing are well taken, because be honest, I wasn't at the beach because I was staying closer to home, but I did ask the people who were there, and from our police and our fire departments. Our fire department oversees our lifeguards. I first asked our police chief whether he agreed with the sentiments that were expressed by Huntington Beach Police Department, and he did. He agreed. I asked our fire chief the same thing, and he agreed too. Now, that's not to say everyone was social distancing, because that's clearly not the case. We have, of course, seen other pictures showing otherwise. And I'm not remotely downplaying our residents' concerns about those individuals, because I suspect that not one person on this council found any of that behavior acceptable. We very clearly need to discuss how to handle those individuals. Also, I've seen some folks suggest that state beaches are all closed, and that's just not the case. The state beaches in Orange County are actually largely open, including to the south of us in Crystal Cove and north of us in Huntington Beach and Bolsa Chica. The county's beaches are open, Huntington Beach is open, San Clemente and Dana Point are open. San Diego County has seen soft reopenings this week. And as people are surely aware, because we've received a lot of comments on this, Los Angeles County beaches are not open and have actually been closed since March 27th. So a fair question that I've been asked by residents is whether that approach has actually caused lower rates of confirmed cases in those beach communities. So I compiled them to see, because I was curious myself. It turns out, if you compare the beaches that were closed in Los Angeles County on a per capita basis, rounded up to 100,000 people, and the reason I did it that way is because that's how it's listed on the County of Los Angeles Public Health Department website, which I have listed at the bottom there. It turns out that every single one of the beach communities in Los Angeles has a higher per capita confirmed case rate of COVID-19 than every single open beach in Orange County, and in some cases by extraordinarily large margins. And even though I'll point out Newport Beach does have the highest per capita that I've listed on the right-hand side, in the past 14 days, Newport Beach's case count has increased a total of 6. And when we asked the question of our Hoag doctors, why they thought that Newport Beach had a higher than normal number at the beginning and has not seen that since, the comment was essentially that we've got once international travel stopped, it seems that so did a lot of the community spread. So, and then I'll just say, what it appears is that there are always negative secondary effects associated with closing public spaces. And we've learned that ourselves. We've seen closing parking lots at Crystal Cove State Park, for example, has pushed traffic and parking into Cameo Shores. And I frankly think we need to write a letter to the state asking them to reconsider that, simply so that we would ease the pressure out of Cameo Shores. We've seen residential neighborhoods being impacted on the peninsula and Corona del Mar, of course. I still think that we should keep I think we should talk about whether to keep them closed. I think we should. Ocean Boulevard, unfortunately, has been funneling people together, and some are choosing to walk in streets, and we're seeing those pictures as well. With the Balboa Island Boardwalk closure, where we've received complaints and staff's been confirming that people are still out walking. Some of them, though, unfortunately, through the alleys. And some people have also asked, well, what's the standard for closing a beach? So I just want to point this out. So California Coastal Commission did send out a standard for how to close coastal areas. And so that says the executive director is prepared to waive permitting requirements for restrictions or closures where the restriction or closure is not longer than the duration of the applicable shelter-in-place order. It's the minimum action necessary to protect public health and safety. It does not involve the erection of any permanent structures. We recognize there is inequity in coastal access, and we strongly encourage local governments to consider approaches that balance public health order requirements and equitable public access, because the coast belongs to all. And I'll point out, I think that any beach closure is going to meet number 1 and number 3, but a beach closure is never the minimum action necessary. It's always the maximum. And so that's always the question that I think we need to be addressing. And then I've had a few people ask me, if the beaches are closed, where exactly will the 12,000 Peninsula residents go to go recreate outdoors? And this is just a slide of our city broken down into council areas, because it's the easiest way for me to articulate this point. But down at the bottom left, that's our peninsula. There are about 12,000 people who live there. The purple area has another 12,000 people. And that whole area, if we close down, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that where they're going to probably go, Marina Park, but of course, Marina Park for the most part is closed. I suspect some of them are going to take the ferry over to Balboa Island, where we also have over 3,000 residents for the closed boardwalk. I'm sure that some will be walking into Newport Heights to get up in the shady area, but that's another 10,000 people who live in that area. And so I think we can all acknowledge that people who choose to live on the peninsula tend to be people who enjoy the outdoors and who love the beach. And closing this down does not mean they're going to stop going outside. It means that they're going to go outside into tighter spaces, and our decision to close beaches would cause that outcome. And I'd also like to at least address what the governor said during his press conference yesterday, and also what he didn't. This is a lot of text, but I think it's worth acknowledging that that we did hear him reference Newport Beach specifically, and I think it's worth talking about just a little bit. So one of the things he said after he talked about the beachgoers and his disappointment in them, he said, "I'm encouraged. I want to acknowledge the Newport Beach. I want to acknowledge their city council. I want to acknowledge the county board of supervisors in Orange County. I'm told they're looking to consider some augmentations and some more deliberative engagements, which we're doing right now, to address the conditions and those concerns that were highlighted over the course of the weekend." But then he talked about what he's going to do with the state beaches. He says the California Highway Patrol, with our state parks patrol and other partners, we're going to avail ourselves of more aggressive enforcement of the stay-at-home order, of the social distancing, of the guidelines and procedures that we expect to be followed all across the state of California. He went on for a while, and then when he got to Q&A, the first question out of the gate was, does that mean you're wanting to take a step more towards citations, or is the goal still education about social distancing guidelines versus enforcements? And he said, no, the predominant focus is education. He said there are no citations or arrests. There were a few warnings scattered throughout the state of California. I think it's a better approach. I don't want to be punitive. He does a very good job being folksy on the, my gosh, someone has lost their job. Whoops, I apologize. He said, so, those aren't the people that he wants to see enforced against. But he does say, but if there are people thumbing their nose and abusing it, putting their lives at risk because they're impacting the lives of others and ultimately setting back the cause of reopening the economy as quickly as we'd like to, I think we may need to do a little bit more. And then he also referenced the idea of parking closures and whatnot to try to rein that in as well. So he discussed education and enforcement. He discussed parking. He did not discuss or suggest closure of any of the state parks or state beaches or even any of the beaches that he referenced. And I'll say, frankly, on these points, I agree that education and enforcement need to be stepped up dramatically. And I also believe we truly can trust the vast majority of people to do the right thing. We clearly have to remind some people to do the right thing. And for the people who don't want to do the right thing, then they ought to be acquainted with our Newport Beach Police Department. And so to that point on education, I'll repeat a source that I've been citing regularly in the past weeks. For everyone watching, please share these basic principles from the State Parks Department. Our city has emphasized this in public messaging, and I'd like to take a moment to do it again. Stay home if you're sick. Stay close to home when you get outdoors. This is not the time for a road trip to a destination park or beach. Venture out only with people in your immediate household. Walk around the neighborhood and enjoy neighborhood parks. Always maintain a physical distance of 6 feet or more when recreating in the outdoors. If you cannot maintain physical distancing, leave the park and do not congregate in parks. So I'm using this last picture, which I'll admit was not taken this weekend, as a reminder that we are in charge of the whole health of our whole community. And that, of course, requires taking into account combating COVID-19. It also includes paying attention to the serious and pervasive health effects of social isolation. To remind everyone of research that I cited early on during this presentation, that social isolation and loneliness lead to higher risks for a variety of physical and mental conditions: high blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, a weakened immune system, anxiety, depression, cognitive decline, Alzheimer's disease, and even death. News reports have noted recently that suicide prevention hotlines have spiked 8,000% in parts of Southern California. Our Orange County Sheriff said last week that domestic violence calls have spiked. We cannot ignore these life and death issues. And the following words that I want to convey are from a speech that President Kennedy intended to give on the day that he was assassinated in November of 1963. He said, "In a world of complex and continuing problems, in a world full of frustrations and irritations, America's leadership must be guided by the lights of learning and reason, or else those who confuse rhetoric with reality and the plausible with the possible will gain the popular ascendancy with their seemingly swift and simple solutions to every world problem." Please know that your city leaders are researching daily, consulting with the most knowledgeable among us, listening to you, and focusing on both short-term and long-term solutions in the best interests of Newport Beach. Ultimately, I support keeping our open spaces open. I support keeping our beaches open. And as your mayor, I believe that we can step up education and enforcement to ensure that the public remains safe without taking away people's freedom to enjoy the outdoors. And to everyone who lives in Newport Beach, I'd like to say thank you for the trust that you have bestowed upon us. So with that, I am going to get out of presenter mode. All right. So then what I'd like to do at this point is open it up for additional comments. And I believe I see Councilmember Dixon interested in speaking, so I'll go to her first.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, staff, and thank you, residents who are listening to this important special meeting today. I appreciate your thoughtful comments, Mayor. They were very appropriate, and the update on our city and our beaches and the city's safety status with COVID-19. Most of all, thank you for calling the special meeting today of our City Council, and it's important that we hear from our residents on the current status of the city's efforts to keep our city safe. And indeed, we have heard from the community, as you said, over 1,000 emails, and I'm sure we will hear more in public comments this afternoon. It is important for our residents and business owners to know that their city council and the city staff are working hard to protect you. The city staff has been on site literally 7 days a week for the last 6 weeks to ensure that we keep our community safe during this extraordinary time, while at the same time provide opportunities for our residents to safely enjoy fresh air and the city's open spaces. Conversations with community representatives have been vital to the council's and staff's decision-making, and it's an incremental process as we work through various ground level challenges that continually challenge all of us. I believe there is wide agreement that last weekend's beach experience was over the top and not in a good way. I too was disappointed to see the images of our beautiful yet crowded beaches on national and even international news sites, and to be reprimanded by the governor, which became national news as well. Way too many people on our beaches and walking through our neighborhoods, and way too much disregard for stay-at-home and social distancing directives. Our job today is to address this important issue and ensure that our residents feel safe, indeed are safe in our community, especially the beach areas, starting this weekend. The challenge before us is to create and implement a plan of action, a plan to reduce the number of beachgoers and to increase neighborhood safety. The good news, the very good news, is that your city and city staff knows how to do this. 10 years ago this year, the Balboa Peninsula Resident Associations worked with the city, police, lifeguards, fire safety, and city staff, including recreation and senior services, to deploy a community safety plan for the 4th of July. July 4th, as many of you know, had become a free-for-all, a drunken mob scene on the peninsula, creating a highly unsafe community from morning until late evening. The July 4th for Families plan is now firmly embedded in the procedure books for our police department, our fire department, our lifeguards, and city staff. And the 4th of July is indeed now safer for families and friends. It is a model community safety plan. And that is where we start. That's the framework, the foundation to bring a different kind of safety now to us, health safety, to our community on hot weather beach days during this COVID pandemic period. I am now going to turn to City Manager Grace Leung to introduce her team, the police chief, the fire chief, and lifeguard staff, to explain the community safety deployment plan that will be launched this weekend. So go to Grace.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Dixon. I just want to say that in listening to the mayor and your comments and all of the messages and input we have received, we've certainly taken this very much to heart. We've been working very hard to try to balance both ensuring that we adhere to the stay-at-home orders, as well as, but of paramount interest for us is to ensure the community, the safety of our community and our residents here. And so if the beaches are to continue to be open, and particularly for this next weekend, we are very much prepared to step up our presence to make sure we're actively managing the flow of traffic and pedestrians, particularly in our beach areas specifically. And I want to have, we have plans that we've started to work on to put into place if this will be continuing with the open beaches. I'm going to turn it over to our chief, police chief, John Lewis. We'll go through what this additional level of presence and effort will look like on the police side. And then our chief Boyles for our fire department will go over the lifeguard portion. And then as well, following that will be Dave Webb, our public works director, to talk about the traffic controls and different elements that we put in place, because we will also, as part of the additional presence, would also, I recommend of closing off all of our city parking lots as well. So let me first start by turning it over to Chief Lewis.
John Lewis, Police Chief, and what I'm proposing here today is really a model that is going to be very familiar to many of you and many people that are listening today, and it's based on, evolved from what we do on the 4th of July and have done for many years in West Newport, again, with the emphasis being here on neighborhood safety. And I think that before I get too far into my remarks, I want to emphasize too that this is not just a police-only plan here. This works in collaboration with our great public works teams and with our fire and marine partners in this. And this is the way this plan is built. So it's something that all of us as a city are working together to make sure that, again, we're emphasizing neighborhood safety and that we're taking care of these issues that we know or have seen in this environment right now. And so I'll talk about specifically what the proposal is to manage what we've seen as additional traffic, also the neighborhood concerns and the concerns about social distancing that we've seen, particularly in this past weekend. And so we have a slide here that will show you the peninsula and the way it is broken down. We have found from the 4th of July and what we've done in the past in West Newport is we've seen it's important for us to all break down separate districts within the peninsula. So part of that is going to be the wedge to 20th Street, and that end of the east end of the peninsula, again, has its own various concerns and challenges to it, and we're going to deploy specifically as it relates to that area of the peninsula. We'll have teams assigned to the Newport Pier area between 21st and 32nd Street, and then also through 32nd to Summit. So we look at these as three different areas of the peninsula because, again, they all have unique concerns to each of them, and we're tailoring our approach and our resources specifically to meet those concerns within the community. The way that we are planning to do this is a multifaceted approach here, not just with our current enhanced deployment that we would have on any other weekend day with our field teams. We will have additional officers, traditional patrol functioning police officers out in the field in West Newport in these areas. With that, we have our motor officers. It's important that we have a robust motor contingent here on the peninsula, particularly if we do see backups. Our motors are able to quickly deal with these problems, move traffic congestion, and also should there be an emergency when we're seeing traffic, we have our motor team as an element that can get there quickly, much more quickly than perhaps a traditional police unit. Now, the beach is really the conversation that we're talking about today, and I think that we need to look at that from a number of different ways. Now, we have various platforms here at the police department that deal with the beach, and you've all seen them out there. Anybody who's been familiar with our approach, these are our ATVs. These are our side-by-side all-terrain vehicles that are out there on the beach, staffed with officers. These are our four-wheel drive police cars that are out there specifically on the beach to deal with people that would choose to not recognize our municipal codes and then also not paying attention to community safety. And social distancing is part of that. We have multiple platforms out there and deployed.
Just a moment. Are you referring to a PowerPoint slide right now? It worked on my computer. You could bring it over on a thumb drive, and I'd be able to put it up. There you go. So you'll need to unmute.
So we're clear here. This is the slide that we're addressing, and thanks to our IT team for being able to make that happen here. So I'll go back to what I was talking to you about the three districts and how we plan on deploying here from this visual. So as you can see here, the peninsula is going to be distinctly different with the needs that we see here. So this is the way that we intend to deploy, consistent with what we've done in the past with 4th of July. So with the teams of our beach officers specifically dedicated to the beach, with our officers that are specifically dedicated to patrol functions, but then also the needs related to the individual neighborhoods, our motor officers to deal with traffic, and then we also have officers that are going to be deployed on bicycles as well. I also want to touch on Corona Del Mar, and you can see it's down at the corner of this slide, where we've seen issues. We've done quite a bit of work with our public works team to help to mitigate those. We also are planning on assigning teams of officers to be in Corona Del Mar and to deal with those concerns as well. So in addition to what we're talking about with our patrol officers and this doubling down of resources that we have on the peninsula, we also have our animal control team that is going to be out there. We continue to see concerns about the river jetty and some of the activity that goes on there. Our animal control will be out in force to deal with those and to make sure that our municipal codes are being abided by as it relates to animals that we know that area has seen issues in the past. We also have our parking control officers. When we have lots that we're proposing, and Mr. Webb is going to discuss that in a minute, when we're talking about parking lot closures and what that's going to look like in this proposal, it's important that we have this team out along with our AmeriPark team to make sure that we are addressing the concerns in our neighborhoods. And we don't want to see people that if they can't find parking in these lots that have been closed to push into neighborhoods to park in areas, the right curbs that cause sliding issues, to park blocking driveways. And so we're going to be out there and forced to deal with those issues that we see and we know that we're going to see when we're talking about closing parking lots as well. So when we're looking at this framework to continue to address the crowd concerns on the peninsula, I think it's important to know that when we're talking about the wedge and 20th Street and in that area of the peninsula, we know specifically that the West Jetty Park area and the wedge area has been something that, as we have been working through this over the past several weeks, continues to be a persistent problem in terms of traffic. So there will be additional presence out there to deal with traffic, to make sure that flow is moving, but also to let people know that there simply isn't a place to park down in that area. And we're going to do that, and we're going to educate people in a way that hopefully we can prevent them from going down there to begin with, because there's simply nowhere for them to park to access those beach areas. So what we've seen since the closure of the wedge is that we've seen additional congestion concerns around L Street. We're prepared to deal with that, and G Street as well. And that's what I have for the overall sketch of what the police department plan is going to look like. And I think that when we look at this and the numbers that I'm proposing here and the different resource enhancement, again, the doubling down of resources here in West Newport, we have to understand that the context that we're dealing with here is also different as well. When we talk about the 4th of July, it is not just a beach that we're dealing with. We are dealing with restaurants and bars at capacity. We're talking about short-term lodging that has now been suspended, is always a concern for us on these big holiday weekends. We have closed parking lots that we're proposing. Our boardwalk, which is a major concern for us in terms of resources on any holiday weekend, and frankly, any weekend during the summer, managing the traffic out there, has been closed for many, many weeks now, and also our piers. So these high volume areas that are characteristic of the peninsula and life on the peninsula have been closed for many, many weeks now. And we think that by being effective and resourcing appropriately in these areas, that we can make sure that we're providing for neighborhood safety and that we can impact the traffic concerns that we have seen over this past weekend in particular.
Okay, thank you, John. If we can move over to Chief Boyle.
Will we be able to ask questions afterwards? Each of them?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Jeff Boyle, Fire Chief. I have Lifeguard Assistant Chief Mike Halfide with me as well if you have any questions after, but I'd like to give you a brief staffing overview of what we've come up with today with regards to lifeguard staffing. These past several weekends, we've been staffing anywhere from 18 to 25 lifeguards on duty per day on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And for this coming weekend, given our numbers that came into the beach last weekend, we're staffing upwards of, we have 37 scheduled as of now, but we can surge upwards of 45. 9 of those are full-time, our full-time lifeguards that work with us year-round, and the majority of them, the rest of them, are our part-time or our seasonal lifeguards. And I don't know, I'll wait for the PowerPoint to come up. Is it? Well, okay, I'll keep going while we work on the PowerPoint. That'll help us see what I'm trying to explain here. Well, while they're pulling that up,
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, can you hear me? Okay. There we go. Okay, Mr. Mayor, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Chief.
Thank you. Okay, so starting at the north end where it says 11 in red there, we're looking at the Newport Shores, Upper West Newport area. Those red are our lifeguard vehicles where we plan to deploy those. We have 6 lifeguard pickup trucks, and you'll see they're spread out down through West Newport, a little bit at the bend, and then all the way down to the last one in the bottom right-hand corner down in Corona Del Mar. The white circles that you see are the lifeguard towers. We plan to staff 15 lifeguard towers starting up at 68th Street. And then you can see the numbers 56, 52, 44, 32, 28. That West Newport area seemed to be our most densely populated area last weekend. That's where we're going to focus our water efforts with a guard actually in the tower. And then over towards the center, you'll see the L, which is the Lido Bridge. We'll have a lifeguard up there staffed as well for potential bridge jumpers. The blue are lifeguard officers, and those will also be mobile, and they'll be able to move around, and they're mobile, filling in different hotspot areas, so to speak, if need be. The R1, R2, and R3, those are relief. So the lifeguards do take breaks, so we'll have relief officers there. We'll have 2 rescue boats, lifeguard supervisors, the assistant chief, battalion chief, and then I've been out there every day on the weekends for the last several weeks as well. I'll be out there patrolling as well. And really what we're looking for at this point are choke points where people are coming in the streets and gathering in large areas. We identified L Street last weekend as an area where people are starting to gather since we closed off the wedge area. And then up in western Newport area, the numbered streets, which is where the last picture from the Orange County Register came from. So those are the areas that our lifeguards will be mobilely patrolling in the lifeguard truck. We've also reached out to our city yard to obtain 3 more vehicles that have 4-wheel drive capability so we could surge with more seasonal lifeguards, put them in as well. They have the ability to use their PA systems or their bullhorns, if you will. So that's how they communicate with swimmers in the water with regards to rip currents and blackball and things of that nature, so they could actually communicate with larger crowds. The lifeguards have been becoming pretty adept, if you will, at approaching different groups and asking them to social distance. What I have found, personally, I've been out there in the vehicles with them over the last couple of weeks, is that the people have been very accommodating. They do move. They haven't been rude in any way. It seems like they're just looking for a place to go and a place to recreate. So I've asked the lifeguards myself, and I've seen them in action. They haven't been overwhelmed at this point, but you know, it can be a little bit challenging at times, but it isn't anything that with a show of numbers and force with more lifeguards and more police officers that we can't control at this point. And I think I'll kick it over to Dave Webb, our Public Works Director, for an update on the parking lot.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Council. Can you hear me? I'm on there.
Yes, we can. Thank you, Dave.
Great, thank you. Well, to start off with, we're going to continue with some aggressive closures and trying to help persuade folks to avoid the beach areas and also encourage social distancing. We are at a regional and local level through our city manager and PIO office putting out the message and continue to do so, noticing folks that the beach area parking is not available, and we're please stay home, recreate in your own areas. We encourage that recreation, but most folks can use their local parks and get the same effect rather than come down to the beach at this time. With that, again, this weekend and as in following weekends directed by council, we will be having our Corona Del Mar Main Beach parking lot closed. Our Newport Pier large lot, along with A and B Street, will be closed. We will have Marina Park closed. And then Newport Pier, McFadden Square, those big lots will be closed. And then the 5 lots up at Seashore will again be closed. Adding to that this weekend will be the Superior lot at Coast Highway and Superior will be closed to the public on Saturday and Sunday. And we may end up adding the 26th Street lot, part of which is under construction now, but we probably will take that out as well down towards the pier. So those parking restrictions will severely limit the amount of parking, and we're trying to get a delicate balance between providing enough for our residents to make sure they're parked, as we do get concerns and complaints from them that they can't find parking, yet not have enough to allow a lot of visitors to come into town and create more crowding and social distance issues. I will note on that note for the folks at home that like to visit Newport Beach, we love you to come back at another time. Right now, we do have our challenges, that both our ocean piers are going to remain closed for the foreseeable weekends. The Wedge and M Street are closed. Also, over in Corona Del Mar, we'd really like you to stay away from that area. I know Ocean Boulevard is a very scenic and picturesque point, but Inspiration Point, Lookout Point, all the lawn areas are currently closed, and we're only allowing walking in one direction along there. So we'd really like you to help us reduce the crowds in those areas. Also, this weekend, too, we'll be doing some additional work over in Cameo Shores. We have seen a lot of folks parking in that area, and we can visually watch them through our cameras walking down to the State Beach. We're going to have some encouraging signs down there and work with our police department to really keep people from parking there and going to the State Beach. That'll be another area that we'll look out this weekend. So look for that. And then also, as the chief mentioned, the Oceanfront Boardwalk is closed. So really avoid that, please. You cannot converse in Travis or along there. And also on Balboa Island, we really want you to stay away from that island because it's very congested. The Bayfront Boardwalk is completely closed. We would like Balboa Island, if you could stay off that. There's a lot of folks we see walk in the alleys, and that has its challenges too. You have to walk and exercise. We'd encourage you to use the streets. The alleys are a little tight, a little tough to walk in there. And we've had some concerns from people who like to exercise there and jog and run, getting too close to folks. So we've provided the island and other folks with some alternative routes. If you like to jog and exercise, maybe to try one of our open parks. The Recreation Department, Public Works have kept them open. There are local parks nearby. There's also some routes you can go out towards Promontory Point, walk and run around there, or over by Irvine Terrace. There's a lot more open area there. So we'd encourage you, if you're in a very congested area and you feel like you need to exercise, please travel with something less congested to be polite to other folks who might be concerned with you in their area or in their space. So that's kind of report on our closures, and we're happy to take any questions.
All right, so this is, let's pull this down. I'll speak up because I forgot. So this is Mayor O'Neill speaking for everyone at home. We've still got plenty to discuss. This would be a plan if the beaches stayed open, and so I want to make sure we're still discussing that the continuing item. So if the beaches were to stay open, does anyone have specific questions for on what was just presented by staff? All right, I see Councilmember Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, staff, and Grace, and Police Chief, Fire Chief. So appreciate this. Let me just probe a little bit. If well, it may be too much trouble to bring back the police chief's peninsula chart, but if you can, what I'd like our residents to understand is that within these special designated areas, which I'm delighted to see, that before we get to the sand just on the streets, if we go back to the slide, but anyway, I want our residents to know that the deployment of safety personnel will be on virtually many of our street corners, from the parking spaces that visitors may be taking, or even the streets, that the process of walking from their cars to the sand, that is the key pain point, because the crowds on the sidewalks are many times not observing social distancing. They're becoming very close to the residential properties. Our residents want to see active presence of safety personnel. You could use volunteers, get the Boy Scouts, get our ambassador volunteers. I want to see physical presence throughout the peninsula before people even get to the beach. So the problem is, what the lifeguards have presented, that's fabulous. I'd like to see actually lifeguards in khaki uniforms on the street to make sure that the thousands of people that will still break through the city and the fact that we've closed our parking lots will not have an impact. They'll still try to find an open space on a residential street. That is the consequence of closing the parking lots. Unless we were to put barricades as you get off Newport Boulevard or Balboa Boulevard, which we're not going to do, people will come into the community, into the residential areas. We need to have the traffic experts, the control people, and extra safety personnel and volunteers present, physically present, to manage the crowds as they get out of their cars, haul their wagons of beach material in front of people's homes. So please tell me, Police Chief, how we are going to manage social distancing on sidewalks.
So there's a number of areas there that can be impacted by people that are walking in the sidewalks and creating gatherings of crowds. And so that is one of our one of the tasks that we have officers assigned to do is to specifically manage that. And those are to contact people to address that when we see it within those neighborhoods. You know, we particularly see that in the 100 blocks around 28th Street, 32nd Street in particular. So we have specific teams that are there designated to deal with that. And then also we have there's people that are getting out of the beach in a number of different ways too. So we have the ones that are walking through the neighborhood, but then we also have Seashore that is that could be impacted with crowds, and those are ones that we see from, you know, bicycle and pedestrian traffic. And we also have people to be in those areas and to deal with it as well, and to manage these crowds, to manage the crowding, and to manage, in essence, the respect for the social distancing that we're expecting of anyone that is going to be coming out here.
All right, so there'll be plenty of people doing what you've just described.
I would say that plenty is probably a conservative amount. There will be a significant, again, I'm talking about a doubling down here of police resources on the peninsula. And again, I mean, you saw from the fire chief's slide about what the lifeguard presence is on the beach. There's going to be a city seal in some form with the city personnel within eyesight of anyone on the peninsula. That's what the plan is here. I mean, this is a big plan, and we expect to have significant visibility up and down West Newport.
So for the residents who live at G, L, and M streets, that's where a lot of the funneling is going through, as you well know. So I don't know if it's a lifeguard or a police officer. There has to be someone there continuously present. And also down at West Jetty Park, because as you know, the barricades get pulled down every day. So someone or more than one has to be stationed there. So, and that just is representative of what needs to be done throughout the peninsula. So I really don't want our representatives to be calling, our residents to be calling me and say, Diane, I don't see anybody. So you're assuring me that they will see people to maintain order on our streets before they even get to the beach or coming back from the beach.
That's absolutely the emphasis of this plan.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Ms. Brenner, it looks like you're muted as well, so just make sure you mute first.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I kind of need some more numbers. I need some more assurance on the numbers from you, John. My first inclination is if we go this route, I'm not sure we need police officers on the beach. Our lifeguards seem to be doing a good job of telling people what they're doing wrong, and I don't think the problems are so much on the beach. So how many people are we actually talking about managing all of Newport, West Newport, the Wedge, the Peninsula, Balboa Island, and all of Corona del Mar in order to keep people from congregating on our sidewalks and backing up traffic in our neighborhood?
Okay, so I'll answer that in a couple different ways. So here's the reason we have police officers on the beach. And what we end up finding on any other weekend, and this would be typical of this time of year in Newport anyway, is that we worry about, there's issues of municipal code violations, whether those things are alcohol violations in particular are the ones that we need to be out there and we need to be able to impact, because what we don't want is for people to think that, perhaps maybe we're just focusing on social distancing in the streets, but, hey, once I get out to the beach, it's a free-for-all out there, and it's not. And our lifeguards, their mission is different than what ours is when it comes to enforcement of these municipal codes. And so what we do is we support each other out there, depending on what the violations are that are observed. So it's important for us to be out there to support our lifeguard teams, specifically when it comes to, perhaps an incident of disorderly conduct or a large crowd or municipal code violations. And so in terms of what our resources are and the actual numbers, for police resources, we're going overboard in terms of what our regular staffing day looks like. And so we're doubling what our regular patrol efforts are. We're increasing our efforts on the beach. We're assigning teams to Corona Del Mar, and we're supporting again the efforts that we're seeing from both of our partners in public and in fire and marine. So now the numbers themselves, I think are ones that we could add up and provide in terms of the actual city staff. But we're talking about hundreds of city staff members that are going to be out there over the weekend in West Newport, in Corona Del Mar, and everybody counts in this one too, because again, when I mentioned that this is not just a police-driven effort, because we need the public works teams to be up there and deal with those barricades like we're talking about at L Street. Because if those things are or at the wedge, because if they're not up there and they're not appropriately maintained, then it ends up being a drain on police resources. It ends up being a drain on our fire and marine resources as well. So we're talking about hundreds of folks that are going to be out there on the street that are going to be helping, and all of us in our own specific ways, and to enhance neighborhood safety.
Okay, can you tell me what that looks like as far as where traffic would be stopped before it goes into the village or into Cameo Shores or onto Balboa Island or the peninsula or West Newport?
So we're not proposing that we're doing a checkpoint. What we're talking about is managing the traffic that we expect to see in these areas. So whether or not that's something where, we can talk about the West Jetty Park, for example, if that means something where we need to manually direct traffic, we're prepared to do those types of things. But in terms of a checkpoint where we're checking licenses and things like that, or restricting to residents and not residents, that's not what is proposed here. And I don't know that it's something that is feasible legally.
I guess what I was referring to more than that was, so once Ocean Boulevard is full of traffic and Poppy is full of traffic and the Fernleaf ramp is full of traffic, where do we start telling people, don't go down there anymore? There's nowhere to drive or park.
Well, that's part of what we have our officers down there to do is to have those, is to direct people out of those neighborhoods and to facilitate that, because they're simply, when there is nowhere to park, we end up with this gridlock, and we have to direct people and we have to move them out of the neighborhoods. And so that's what those officers there are tasked to do is to get that traffic moving, and to get them out of those areas that are impacted there, specifically for that reason. And there's also the signal cycling, and that's something that we work on with Public Works as well. So when we see these areas that are impacted, I'll give you an example. In the afternoons, we know that there's going to be traffic that is going to be leaving West Newport at between 4 o'clock, generally on our Saturdays and Sundays. So we work with Public Works and we work with the signal timing and we've found success with this during the summers as well, where we're pushing traffic out and we're getting it out of the city rather than backing up within the city. And we do that in Corona Del Mar as well. So that's just an example of some of the things that we're doing. So we're working with our folks that are actually on the ground dealing with the individuals that are impacting these neighborhoods, but then we're also working in a larger sense with Public Works and with our signal timing as well.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for Jeff, though.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Jeff?
Yes.
Not that Jeff. Jeff Boyles.
Oh, excuse me.
Okay, I'm on.
Okay, Jeff, I have a question about our lifeguard personnel as far as making rescues during this time of the COVID-19. How are our lifeguard personnel protected, say, if they have to do a mouth-to-mouth resuscitation or something like that?
Good afternoon. This is Mike Halfide, your chief lifeguard.
Hi, Mike.
Our lifeguards are trained with the fire department to use universal precautions. So if they were making a rescue out in the water, they would bring them in safely. And if they had to do mouth-to-mouth or perform other things, they would make sure to use their personal protective equipment, putting that on prior to making contact with the patient.
But they definitely would have to be closer than 6 feet to these people.
Ms. Brenner, this is Chief Boyles. I'll jump in on that. If it is an actual rescue from
I'm sorry,
the
I
ocean,
need to speak up.
there's no way around having to touch the person, but once
Sorry,
we get them out of the water.
Chief Boyles, your particular computer, I believe, is muted. So we're only catching it from, so I need you to.
Speak into the microphone a little better?
Yes.
Okay. Is that a little better?
Yeah. Yes.
It is, yes.
So with the, if there's an actual rescue in the ocean itself, there's no way around the body-to-body contact. So the lifeguard would pull them in as best they could. They could use a buoy, or if they had to just actually do a lifeguard rescue technique, they could do it that way. A lot of studies show that viruses don't do well with salt conditions. So we don't have any information that I'm aware of with regards to the coronavirus, but we do know that viruses don't do well with salt air and salt conditions. So for that immediate part while they're wet and while they're in the salt, my hope is that they would be relatively safe. But once they pull them in and they dry them off, that's when they could use their gloves, their bag valve masks, and their other personal protective equipment. And then our paramedics would arrive to help or take over at that point.
Okay, but there's no doubt that our emergency personnel are in closer proximity to a large number of people during this than they would be otherwise.
With regards to a rescue, yes.
Well, okay, but in general, I'm actually talking about in general in that one, but the lifeguards were the ones that were most, at the forefront of my mind as far as how we keep them safe. So, okay, that's great. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Anyone else want to ask questions on this particular aspect of the presentation? Ms. Dixon. Yep, perfect. Okay.
Do you want me to go?
Yes, please.
Okay, sorry. Police Chief, Mr. Chief, let's talk about crowd control on the streets. That's my main concern, as you know, because we've talked about this. So down at Peninsula Point, well, at all the key gathering hubs, you're well familiar with them. How will we disperse the crowd and help them get to the beach with correct social distancing procedures? And you've got traffic people directing cars that are going to be trying to find a place to park and then get them off the peninsula. And then you need to have, in my opinion, someone directing people, literally guiding people, because people loosely walking on the sidewalks are the main concern, and gathering and coagulating there is a concern at Peninsula Point. You've got bikes, and as you see, there are many, many, many bikes. So it's not just cars, there are people coming on bikes and being part of that whole miasma of people. How are we going to manage the pedestrians on foot?
So what we do is we use the processes that we already have in place. And let's use Seashore, for example, because that's the one that we get complaints about, where we have folks that are bleeding out from the bicycle lane, that are moving into traffic and they're blocking things up. And so what we do is we have our teams that are specifically in those areas to keep people within the designated areas for pedestrian traffic, for bicycle traffic, and for vehicle traffic. And what we found is that if we are not there to regulate that at times, then particularly on busy weekends, that we see that bleed over that comes seashore in particular, and it sort of creates a life of its own in terms of congestion on this. We also have the issue too that happens with cars that are looking for parking, and what they will do is, again, going back to seashore, is you'll have the car that will stop and will unload in the middle of the street, and those are the kinds of things that if we are not there to be able to deal with right away, can end up having congestion or create congestion problems from a distance on that as well. So we have to be there to be able to engage those people right away, to be able to stop the congestion from happening and create a flow here before issues become bigger than just a one car parking in the street. So that's the purpose of having these teams actually in these neighborhoods, whether it's on foot, on bike, on some type of ATV, or in a regular police car with a PA system where we're broadcasting the expectations that we have for people. We have a number of different tools at our disposals, and we have the flexibility and to be nimble in terms of our approach to the individual issues that we're dealing with. So they're all different, and we have various different ways to be able to impact them. And that's why, again, I'm talking about these multiple approaches that we have here and the different levels of equipment that we're using, because, again, they're all for different needs in these neighborhoods.
Okay, one more question. Thank you, Chief. To Dave Webb, is he at a camera? Dave?
I'm in the room.
Hi.
No.
Could you describe for all of us, what will the verbiage be on the signs as they are preparing to exit from PCH onto Newport Boulevard, on Balboa Boulevard? What will the sign say?
We have 9 changeable message signs in town. The signs will basically be, we can't get a whole lot on there, but it say no beach parking available, stay home. It'll be a flip sign if we can do that. We may not get available, but it'll say no beach parking. That's about as strong as we can get to folks, telling them there is no parking and ask them to stay home.
Okay, and what about as you enter through, you go through Balboa Village, will it say the same thing? What will it say?
It'll say we are going to take, I'm going to take a sign off Jamboree up by Fletcher Jones right now. We think we could get better value and put it down on the fence, but we think we'll place it at 15th Street again. So if you come down Newport Boulevard, you'll see one around Hospital Road, you'll see it again at Lido, and then you'll see it again at 15th Street, basically saying no beach parking available, stay home. By the time they get to Balboa Village, they've already passed everything through there. The signs are probably more valuable up towards the beginning of the peninsula.
Look, would it be helpful to say there's no turnaround, no parking, do not go further, turn around, right at A Street there?
A lot of language on that. Again, I don't know if we can program that. We do have signs. We're going to put type 3 barricade. That's the big ones. Right now, we have 3 signs right in the way as you come to A Street that basically say, please avoid visiting residential parking only down there. And they just drive right by that and go to the wedge. So I think in combination with the chief's forces down there to kind of educate folks to try to turn them around. I know Channel Road and Jetty Park is kind of a destination. People like to cruise all the way down, and that's their turnaround point and come back. We do want to encourage them at 15th and other places to try to turn around. But I think we'll need to have a physical presence on that.
Okay, thank you for saying that. Just to follow up on that point of physical presence. So I hope the police chief, obviously you are coordinating, I know you are. People need to turn, they can't even go down there. They have to turn around because those signs that we have all over, I know we thought they'd work and people would respect them, the blue and white signs, nobody pays attention. So I hope the flashing lighted signs that will work, but there we need to have, before people at these key intersections, turn around, no parking, turn around. So, and then to follow up on that, if I could ask a question with Grace from a communication standpoint, Grace, if you could please describe our communications to the external media to inform what situation is in Newport Beach this weekend.
Yes, with our PIO, John Pope, we'll continue to push that message out in a very strong way. I think we're going to make sure we clearly communicate the lack of parking, because with the additional parking lot closures, we're going to be very widespread in getting that message out through social media and to the press on that information. And we're going to very much emphasize that there's going to be enhanced presence of police, of the lifeguards, that, to the extent that we need to, if people aren't following after being educated, then we will issue citations. And that information is going to be communicated as well. So we're going to get that out as far and widely as we can on that point.
That's a very important point. That's a very
And I
important
just want
point.
to emphasize on what Dave was saying. We do have a lot of signage out there. It is challenging. People start to ignore that. And that's why I think it will be critical with both the lifeguards and our police out there, amplifying that message verbally, with the motorists as they're moving through to keep that traffic moving and getting people turned around.
Well, I'd like to see the headline on those communications: Newport Beach parking lots closed. No beach parking. I mean,
Right, absolutely.
all right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Any other questions in terms of kind of logistics on this presentation? Councilmember Brenner.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I just think it's interesting that we are preaching to the choir in a lot of these cases. A lot of these people don't follow the news, they don't pay any attention, and when they get as far as Newport Beach and they see a no parking sign, people are desperate. And I don't think they actually care in some cases whether there's a parking space down there or not. They would rather be driving down the peninsula or along Ocean Boulevard in their car, just seeing whatever they can see rather than being cooped up in their house. So, and who could blame them? I mean, who could blame them? It's still better than that looking at the four walls they've been looking at. So I think that our signage and our police presence in enforcing this has to be much, much greater if we go this route, because they don't really care if they're just going to be sitting there in traffic and they can't find a parking space. So unless we're willing to actually have some signage there about turn around and enforcing it, it's not going to do any good.
I agree.
All right. I don't see any other requests to ask on this logistics. Oh, sorry, Mr. Duffield, did you have questions on this presentation?
Wait, hold on.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm fine.
Okay. All right. I know, thank you very much to our police chief and fire chief and public works director for that discussion. And I know that Councilmember Muldoon had also asked to speak, so I'm going to kick it to him. And then I'll go to Mr. Herdman. And then I guess, do I have anyone else who would like to make any comments before we go to public comments after that? Okay, so we'll go with Mr. Muldoon and then Mr. Herdman, then we'll open up public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to start off by saying a couple of things. First off, some people at home are having trouble. I'm getting text messages watching the program because of some glitches. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions that are repetitive. I've been asked to ask a couple of them. Honestly, for me, this is even hard to follow because this is not your typical situation where we're all in the same room. Staff has done a great job setting this up. Thank you very much. Of course, another thanks to our first responders and city staff. We're very proud of the hard work, and I think we're on the tail end of this. Kind of want to start up by saying, we all know the saying, a lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is putting on its shoes. But in this case, well, the truth is putting on its sandals. I'd like you, Grace, would you mind putting up the comparisons of the picture published in a local paper versus that was scrutinized versus the picture, the aerial shots we have?
Jeff, are you able to pull up that the slides? The picture ones?
Dave's working on it.
Okay.
Okay, while we're doing that, Chief Lewis, could you sit down for a second, please. Maybe push out Chief Boyles for a second and then you can rotate back in.
Well, I don't know if that's it.
While they pull that up, Councilmember Muldoon, did you have a question for me?
Yeah, why don't we go to you first, Chief Boyles? Could you just give us the latest, recap analysis on the current situation of COVID-19 countywide?
Yes. So countywide, as of today, our numbers. Get my glasses so I can see. The total countywide number today is 2,151, which is up from 2,117 yesterday. The total number of deaths since they started tracking them back in March 17th is 42. In fact, specifically, the very first death in Orange County was March 25th. So from March 25th to April 28th, there's been 42 confirmed deaths of the 2,151 confirmed cases.
Thank you. And I'd like to note that the experts at Hoag have been stating for some time now that we have successfully flattened the curve in Orange County. Obviously, this is a very serious issue, and we still have to stay ahead of it. But it's no cause for panic, to close down our beaches, for individuals to be afraid of others, especially if they're keeping their distance. Would you say, Chief, that morale is still high in the department?
Yes.
Would you say
and by morale, I think you're asking with exposure and illness with regards to the COVID situation?
Mm-hmm.
You and I have had this conversation. So we've had what we call, and I'll give a report later tonight, but we've had 174 enhanced precaution dispatches over the last 6 weeks. And that means that our dispatch center has identified a patient that is symptomatic and potentially COVID positive. So our folks use goggles, masks, and gowns for those particular patients. To date, we've transported 6 known positive COVID-19 patients. The last one was last Tuesday, April 21st. We've had 3 of our safety members tested because they became symptomatic, but they came back negative. So currently, we do not have anyone that's symptomatic, and we have not had any positive cases, knock on wood, with any of our safety personnel at this point.
Thank you very much, Stephen. From my perspective, I'm seeing statistically that we have definitely flattened the curve and we're past this. And anecdotally, our service members on the front line who would be facing the highest level of exposures have not been seeing any uptick or really any activity at all at the personnel level. Talking about, now that we do have the pictures up, Chief Lewis, this picture first, I'm just going to briefly state, was published and made it nationwide, if not farther. Obviously, it shows a scene of a very crowded beach. Chief, would you be willing to put up the pictures that you take and just lay the foundation as to what time you took them and what day it was and how that day correlates to other days in the last week or so?
Sure, we'll pull those up here.
And I know the mayor already touched on this. I just think it's good to hear it out of the horse's mouth.
Are those up on the screen right now? Yeah. John? Okay,
Yes,
those
they
are
are.
actually mine. Mr. Muldoon, the pictures that you're looking at here where it says 24th Street, Saturday, April 25th, were screenshots taken by Assistant Lifeguard Chief Mike Halfide from the 24th Street Surfline camera. So you can see at noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and 5 o'clock. What he was doing was basically just capturing that area of the beach throughout the day to show the increase, which tends to, what we see is somewhere between about 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock tends to be the heaviest crowd. Can you hit the next slide? Okay, so the next slide here is 36th Street. It was. Okay, so that one's important to see too, because that's where the bulk of the people were in, somewhere in that general area is where the picture from the Orange County Register came in. And what Chief Halfide was trying to depict here through the Surfline camera, if you look up at left, 2 o'clock, noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, were just a steady flow of beachgoers and where they go. You can see that they come and go. But from our vantage point, they were doing a really good job of being civil and keeping their social distance. So it's just another viewpoint to go along with Chief Lewis's aerial pictures that he took from the helicopter. And I don't believe we have them on here, but I have some that I took myself from the Newport Pier and the Balboa Pier. But I just wanted to, we did load those just as a visual from the Surfline camera because it was there throughout the day.
Excellent. So I just want to say, before we turn over to Chief Lewis, American citizens are responsible, and they have rights to assemble and right of free movement. And with these responsibilities, with these rights come responsibilities. And I'm seeing these responsibilities be manifested in everyday behavior from those who are visiting the city of Newport Beach and those who are from out of town. And I would like to say that in Orange County, and I believe in the state of California, we are seeing the curve being flattened, and we are as people overcoming this issue. I think it's important that we start talking about hope, about opening up businesses, and about moving forward. And I believe that there's a disservice that's done when fear is spread or misinformation is spread, like the prior picture that showed a packed beach that was not really an accurate depiction of the beach. So this is a good segue. Chief Lewis, you took these photos from the helicopter, correct?
Correct.
And approximately what time was it?
These were 2:45, 2:46 on Saturday.
So that's roughly between the 1 and 5 peak hours that Chief Boyles had mentioned.
Correct.
And in your personal observation, were most people on the beach, if you were able to see them, were most people on the beach practicing social distancing and being civil?
They were.
And that's without us enforcing social distancing. I believe it's not the role of government to enforce social distancing. That's because these are people who have a self-interest in not getting sick themselves. So I'm not surprised, but that's the behavior that you witnessed in your department saw.
Yes, so that's the behavior that we have seen, and that's consistent with what the lifeguards have reported to us as well.
Now, of course, there are exceptions to the rule, and I'm sure that some occurred. But I would submit that for those who are upset about the way Newport was displayed in national press or perhaps even around the globe, that those accounts are not accurate. And really, you should be proud of Newport Beach and proud of the county and proud of your neighbors. And it's easy to fall into the trap of fear and to attack those who you think are not doing what you would like them to do. But in fact, we should all be proud that we have come together united. And I believe we are a wiser people for it. And we're going to come out of this with healthy practices and better prepared for a situation like this if it ever occurs. I just want to thank both of you for your amazing staff and for your objectiveness, for your hard work, for the extra hours. I do have a couple questions still of you, Chief, about things that I would like to recommend to you. about how to deal with the traffic on the peninsula. I just want to be clear though and we can exit the screen if you would like now and go back to the general group. Thank you so much. Mr. Hart, there are rules that the council cannot exactly direct the police chief and the first responders what to do. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. You can't direct law enforcement to take any type of police type action.
Okay, so what I would like to do is go down more suggestions than ordering police department or the chief what to do, because there are those restrictions. But I personally believe that we should keep the parking open by the peninsula. It is my personal opinion that having these public parking locations closed causes visitors and even locals to have to hunt for a parking spot in residential areas. And when that occurs, many residents that are still not comfortable with seeing people outside their homes are being put in even more comfortable situations. What I would like is access to be as safe and easy as possible for our residents, for those that are visiting Newport Beach. So it's my recommendation. I don't believe I can make it a form of motion because there are rules. It's my recommendation that we keep public parking locations open. I am very happy to know that, or happy that the city manager decided to keep parks open. I obviously want to continue that. I would like to know when children who are the least susceptible to this and are the most eager to get exercise, when they will be allowed to play in the jungle gyms again. That's one question I have. For the city manager, I know she and I talked about when she thinks that will be appropriate. If you'd like to answer, Grace, if you can give us an idea when you think that can happen.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Muldoon. I think we are really looking at what the state guidance is, and from the county as well, who we need to take the lead from. The governor has come out with stages of when the opening up could be happening. We are currently in sort of a stage 1 setup right now, getting ready to move into that stage 2. And I think in that stage 2 is where there's going to be the potential to be opening up things like more on the facility side. There isn't the detail yet from the governor or from the county side on the specifics on that. And they haven't actually laid out a time frame specifically for that. They are saying it's more a matter of weeks, not months. So I don't know what that weeks means, if it's 1 to 2 weeks or 2 to 3 weeks, but I feel like it's in that time frame. And certainly what's helpful is in our county with what our numbers are, that I think we're primed to do that. Once the testing is in place, the contact tracing is in place, to be able to really move into that next phase. And we're really eagerly looking. I've been in very close contact with the county office on how we are able to be a part of that in terms of moving forward as quickly as we can there.
Well, thank you. I know that every time I walk my son past the park, my heart breaks a little bit for him, and he is looking forward to it. So many other children are celebrating and enjoying life again. And I do think that there might be a new normal in the sense that we are wiser, but America needs to return back to activities of freedom. We are free people. It was paid for by the blood of patriots over 200 years ago. It's paid for still to this day. And we cannot let fear, frustration, or irrational behavior stop our fundamental God-given rights. And those rights include the right to assemble, the right to work, the right to contract for work, the right to due process. I personally have been pushing for the county and the state to continue to move towards opening. There's great news from the county today. The county is making steps to continue to move towards opening. We're hearing from businesses that are never going to come back, the heartache, and we're hearing about some that are worried they're not going to be able to come back. So those who wish to stay home and have reservations, that they have the right to do so, and I respect that right. And I believe that the rest of America, especially here in Orange County where we flatten the curve, is eager to get back to work, has earned the right to get back to work, has shown wisdom, and has flattened the curve. And of course, we can't forget to thank Hoag, the medical providers in the county, who really are the bravest voices in this, because I'm actually hearing more from the medical field that we need to open and get back to business. I'm hearing more from them locally saying that than I am from our own elected leaders. So I just want to express my gratitude to those who are on the front line in the medical industry and are taking care of those who are sick. And of course, I want to offer my condolences to the family of the 42 deceased. And I would just like to offer encouragement that the light is at the end of the tunnel. I believe it is sooner than what the governor is suggesting. I believe that we, as a city and the county, are ready for a plan and to move forward on that plan. And I would like to thank all of those who have dedicated so much of their time and energy to make flattening the curve a success in Orange County. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Herdman, you'd like to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Where do I start? Governor Newsom also mentioned in his chastising of our city over the weekend that what took place this weekend was in fact counterproductive to his order and what he expects from all Californians. He also said that we need to fix the mistakes that we've made. We need to close beach parking, maybe beyond the beach. We need to improve and follow the rules that have been established. And he didn't say this, so I'm going to say it. But if everyone in this state would cooperate as it relates to his executive order, we'd get out of this sooner and get back to normal. I respect the work you did, the research you did well, but this is not last year. And 5 years of July 4th statistics really mean nothing in today's scenario. Just that we had the simple fact that we had 40,000 people on our beaches who were under an order from the governor to stay home is what is significant. And that's what we're trying to avoid here today for the next 3 weekends. There was just one violation after another of people not being in compliance with social distancing. I'm not talking about on the beach, but I'm talking about getting to the beach, as Diane very appropriately pointed out. And as far as mask wearing was concerned, it was almost non-existent. I, on Friday, made 4 trips to the beach, starting at the beginning of the beach in West Newport, where Newport borders Huntington, and traveling all the way down Seashore, and covered the entire length of the peninsula down to M Street. I didn't go beyond there. I did it 4 times on Friday. I did it 5 times on Saturday. I didn't do it at all on Sunday because I spent Sunday responding to over 260 emails that had built up. If everyone in this state and our cities were cooperating with the governor and staying at home, we could bring and end this quarantine. We could bring this quarantine to an end. People are supposed to be sheltering at home. 40,000 people did not do this on Friday and Saturday this past weekend, which kept us from reopening our economy and curbing the spread of this virus. I'm impressed with all the plans that have been presented today. But if we simply closed our beaches for the next 3 weekends, we save on staff costs and resources. We save on all of the prep time and the expenses going in to the preparation for the extra resources that are going to be expended over the next 3 weekends. And most importantly, we don't place a lot of our staff in jeopardy. Just a few more other comments. I guess one of the things that I'm concerned about is that if we don't close the beaches, we have an entire population of people that live along the beaches in our community. And with this influx of people coming to our city, they are preventing the people that live in our city from utilizing our city for exercise walking. They're preventing people who live in our city from actually utilizing our city, and they're forcing them to have to shelter in their own homes. It's a selfish act, and it's an unnecessary act if we would close our beaches. This doubling down on resources concerns me in terms of the costs, the expense, and as I said, exposing our staff unnecessarily to the potential of contacting this virus. And then as far as mental health issues is concerned, which are extremely valid, we have walking trails within our city. We have preserves. There's the desert. There's the mountains. My wife and I, when we get up every morning, we've been making a plan for the last 6 weeks. And lots of times it's just included a drive out of the city just to take a look at the area. People can reach out to friends or family if they're by themselves. They can organize a friend's neighbor get together outside on someone's driveway or someone's patio or someone's front yard where they're keeping chairs 6 feet apart. My wife went to her Bible study class last week where they did exactly that in someone's backyard. Our open beaches are not the sole source or solution to preventing mental health problems and issues. And then the last thing I want to say is this is only for the next 3 weekends. It's not forever. There's 5 other days in the week, Monday through Friday, when people in our city can utilize our beaches. It's not as if we're closing them for the next 3 weeks every single day. Right now, with businesses closed and the weather being as nice as it is, every day is a beach day, to be quite honest with you, with so many people being out of work and being home. So there's plenty of opportunity during the week for our citizens to use our beaches. So just some of the things that I'd like to say. There were some people in the city, there are some people in the city that are very much in favor of closing our beaches, and I feel a responsibility to advocate for them. Thank you.
Right. This time we're going to go to public comment. As I noted, we're going to 2 minutes for public comment, a total of 90 in case we need to keep going. So we'll start with those people who are in the community room, and then we'll go to the phones.
So we don't talk through our phone.
So I'm sorry, let's make sure the microphones are muted except
Tell me to hold on. Okay. Yeah, I call. Okay.
Mayor O'Neill, members of the council, this is Jim Mosher. First, I wanted to observe, as interesting it is, the discussion of the community safety deployment plan sounds a little bit different than what was on the agenda, the resolution number 3. But what I actually want to comment on is the first of the 3 resolutions, which has to do with appointing an ad hoc committee for investigating or helping with the reopening of businesses. I have a general concern about this being a non-public committee of the city council, which is going to meet privately and formulate its recommendation privately. I have a general concern about that, but I have a more specific concern about this committee how it relates to our existing Business Advancement Committee, which is another of these non-public meeting committees, how the two are going to relate to each other. And then finally, the one public comment we received last evening, that member of the public naturally, and I have to say, in the community room, we could not hear your comments on this, so I might be repeating what you're saying. That member of the public was thinking, obviously, a business reopening committee would be a committee of business people instead of a committee of council members. So I too am wondering why that is not the case. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, my name's Teresa Hernandez. I'm a 22-year resident of Newport Beach. I'd like to address, first of all, thank you. I know you guys are all stressed out, so thank you for serving. But Governor Newsom asked us to shelter, or he actually didn't order it. He heeded, which is not an order, for us to shelter in place to flatten the curve and not overwhelm the hospitals. All of us, most of us in, I know, Newport Beach and in California have done that. You can see that by our numbers are something like 1,900 people have died in a population of 40 million people. In Newport Beach, in Orange County, we have 3.2 million people. 42 people have died. That's 0.0012 or 0.0014. So we've done what he has asked. Now, we did not elect Governor Newsom to be our leaders in Newport Beach. We elected all of you to be our leaders. You have control over parks, beaches, and trails. We want our beaches opened, we want our trails open, we want our parks open, and that means with parking. I live in Bonita Canyon. If I want to go to the beach, I'm not going to walk all the way down there with my family and then walk all the way back up MacArthur Boulevard. You are creating a bigger problem by not having parking. The beach does not just belong to Newport Beach and just the people on the peninsula. I feel like you're doing all of these accommodations for all of the people that live down there. It's as ridiculous as the people that go and live next to Disneyland and are pissed off every night at 9 o'clock when fireworks go off. Then don't live there. I understand police and people helping to keep the social distancing, and that's wonderful. But you can see by the pictures from the helicopter, people were doing that on their own. You should have public parking when the parking lots are full, then you have people directing them. Lots are full. But this is land of the free, home of the brave. The Constitution says we have the right and freedom to assemble. If you close the lot, you're going to have people Ubering down there, and then when they need to go home, they're all going to be congregating on the sidewalks waiting for their Uber to come, so it defeats the purpose of keeping the sidewalks open. I really, really urge all of you to support the Orange County Board of Supervisors in opening our businesses. I agree with you, Mayor. The 28% has gone up in domestic violence. I called Chalk Hospital. My friend is a psych nurse there. He said they have no COVID patients, but the patients coming in with trying to commit suicide, kids that are mentally unstable, this is nuts. We should be opening up the jungle gym. And of the 42 people that have died in Orange County, most of them are 65 years and older, which I'm part of that group that's over 60. And I'm not worried about it. I mean, yes, it's horrible for every death, but it's not like
Lisa, if you
kids
could
are
wrap up.
dying. Okay, they need to go on the jungle gym.
All right. Next speaker, please.
Hello, Jeff Benson, Fountain Valley. So thanks you guys for serving us today. I know it's a special meeting. But earlier you presented the numbers for a Newport Beach infection rate. I'm just letting you know, people who are asymptomatic, they don't have the time to be tested. They don't want to be tested, or they don't even know they have symptoms. So I think the infection rate's a lot higher. I think in Newport Beach, I think they read more, so they test more. That's why it seems like Newport Beach is ground zero, or Laguna Beach is ground zero, but it's really not. We really don't know where ground zero is. So I'm increasingly skeptical of the coronavirus hype. As we are about to hit the 1 million coronavirus infection mark nationally, we have the USC and Santa Clara studies that show the infection rate is 50 times higher than what it really is. We have the latest is that 96% of coronavirus prisoners in 4 southern states are asymptomatic. you have 65% of sailors on the USS Roosevelt who are asymptomatic as well. They say the death rate is 2% for those tested positive, only for those who test positive. So for all those people who didn't test, it brings the infection rate a lot lower, 0.1% at the very tops. All right, so I still don't know why I still don't want the virus near me. I'm still gonna social distance. I don't wanna be sick in general. So we can compromise, we can wash hands, put masks, whatever, but shutting down businesses isn't the way to go. So as of now, it looks like the economic damage is gonna cause more damage than what the coronavirus will ever will. So moving forward, any politician or news pundit who advocates for keeping the economy shut down are only thinking about one thing, and that's defeating Donald Trump in November 2020. That includes Governor Newsom. His only objective is to defeat Donald Trump in November. So they're going to do everything they can to destroy his #1 issue, which is the economy. We've already erased all the job gains we've done the past 4 years. It's already back to Obama levels or 2009 levels. So it's all wasted. We're hoping tens of millions more people are unemployed.
All right,
Let's elect Joe Biden for president.
that's 2 minutes.
It's not going to work.
Thank you. All right, next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Janet Frazier. I moved to Newport 4 years ago. And it's always been my dream to live here, and I'm here. And now that I'm here, we're, for all intents and purposes, closing down the beach. What I heard today, thing from the mayor was, we're going to keep the beaches open, and I'm saying, right on. But then I heard every way that you're really closing the beaches, because you're going to have the police out as a like military state to turn everyone around. My opinion is that you open the parking so people aren't walking through the neighborhoods, and then they're not going to be, hurting the neighbors. They'll be in the parking lot, or just close down the beach. To me, that's the sense of this. But I want to get to the real big point. I don't hear it talked about. On March 13th, there was the press conference with Trump and all the doctors, and they told us that 114 million to 240 million people were going to be infected. They also told us that anywhere from 1 million to 2.5 million people were going to die. I said, oh my God, I got to stay home, right? Because that was a scary thing. And then a week goes by, and a week goes by, and those numbers keep getting reduced and reduced and reduced. Then we have the hotspot of New York, and everybody's freaked out about that. And they said, oh, it's coming to California. It's coming to California. Guess what? It didn't come to California. It certainly didn't come to Orange County, where we have a total of 42 deaths. They probably have 42 deaths in an hour in New York City. And it's not going to happen here, especially with the weather. We need to open up our economy. I work as a volunteer for Hoag Hospital. I work in the chemical dependency unit, helping people get sober. And I'm going to tell you.
So that's 2 minutes. If you could wrap up, please.
I'll wrap up real quick. Just in the last couple of weeks, I've already heard of 4 suicides associated with alcohol and drug abuse. And people are hurting. We need to open up our economy, stop the depression, getting people back to work. And it should start here. You guys are our leaders.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You'll do it.
All right. Go next speaker, please.
Hello, City Council members. My name is Noah Blum. I was born and raised here, left for quite a time, about 16 years, and came back to open businesses, and have been here for about another 16 years. I'm going to start with just one quick quote from Benjamin Franklin. Those who would give up essential liberties to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Those are words that carried us throughout the entire time of our country. And here we are, so quick to give up a little liberty just for an idea of safety. I read the letter I sent to the city council. It's brief, I'll get right through it. Now is the time to define the ideals of our city. Our goals are to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In the closing of our city, countless lives have been put at risk, not from a vague threat of infection, but from a very real economic collapse, depression, desperation, and fear that have lasting, long effects that once this new virus has passed. The time to wait is over. We've been given a wonderful opportunity to show the country, state, and nation the ideals of freedom that make this city so strong. Leave the beaches open and continue with the businesses that make this city so great. The Attorney General of the United States has signaled support of these initiatives. Today's not the day to sit on the sidelines with a wait-and-see mentality, but a wonderful opportunity to show that it is the small cities and their people that are the voice of this nation. Today we have a chance, while the whole country watches, to define what liberty means to Newport. Thank you.
All right, next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Brian Vea from Huntington Beach, California. I thank you all, and I thank you for opening this to let the public have an opportunity to speak. I think that everyone here should be looking at the advice from Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx. They've been giving faulty advice, and the president knows that. They're the World Health Organization. He's going to defund it. 2 years ago, the United States was getting bled by $350 million. And then just last year was $58 million. The National Institutes of Health. Again, these are things that if you would just listen to the press conferences that he gives daily, you'll learn these things. The National Institutes of Health, $30 billion. Again, they're taking that right out. They're fleecing us. Guys, look at the numbers. Crunch the numbers. The numbers are not accurate. We're playing a game here. People are wearing a mask. I look at people over here. There's no one. There's a couple people. I guess the fake news is wearing a mask. Again, they're sending this stuff out with their trucks, their satellite dishes, and they're telling the world the sky is falling. Give it time. We're going to find out that the sky isn't falling and the numbers just don't add up. Thank you again for doing this. And there's a lot of corruption. I love our president. He's doing a great job, and he's draining the swamp just like he promised to. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you. All right, next speaker, please. Okay, so we'll move on then to our phone calls. So if our staff could please put forward the folks on the phone. Just a quick reminder, when you call in, please make sure that you have muted whatever you are watching us on. There is a slight delay between our live, the way we were speaking, and then the watch. So with that, we have our first caller. So if you wouldn't mind. I need you to mute. Much better. Can you hear me now?
Hello?
Yes, thank you very much. Go ahead, you have 2 minutes.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me? We've got to figure this out. What's going on? So I need to just know from our IT staff what's happening here. Okay. All right.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Thank you very much. Go ahead. You have 2 minutes. Can you hear me?
Hello?
You have us muted?
Yes, I'm at my computer.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Hello? Hi. Hello.
Hi, yes.
This is Beth Cobb. Hello, this is Beth Cobb, COBB. I live in the Harborview Homes here in Newport Beach, and I hear everything that you're saying, and I understand it. But I do want to just mention something. Hello. Yes, I'm at my computer. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Hi, ma'am, if you could please mute your television that you're watching
Hi.
or your computer.
Yes.
Okay, now go ahead. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, Beth. Could you please make sure that you muted what are you watching?
Yeah, the computer's on, but I'm not by it right now because I want to be clear that I can be heard.
This on television or on your computer?
It's on my computer. Oh, you're
Thank
on.
you.
We're on time.
Go ahead now.
We're on time
Okay.
delay. Okay.
Yes,
Thank
we are,
you.
ma'am. Yeah, we are. So go right ahead. Yep, we'll start your 2 minutes now. Go ahead.
All right. I live in Harborview Homes, which is a lovely neighborhood with a park that runs down the middle of it. And I've lived here for 50 years. Every Halloween, and I know that's a long time ago, we gave out Halloween treats. And it has gone from just a few children, neighborhood children that came door to door, till last year, I had over 300 children come to my door. And I welcomed them, loved them, gave them wonderful treats. However, it has gotten to the point that the police can't control the traffic that comes through our park on Halloween. They've gotten big floodlights to deter people from overcrowding the park. And the children really can't do their trick-or-treating anymore. And so it came to the place that I found myself sitting here with over 400 treats for children that didn't come because they're really not interested in the treats as much as they are the socialization. And if the police can't control those numbers in my neighborhood, how can they control what's going to happen at the beach? We just don't know. I think it's asking too much of the police department to say that perhaps we'll have the Boy Scouts out helping, we'll have volunteers out helping. Those are wonderful ideas, but we're not going to stop the crowds. And it's not that we don't want the crowds to come. We love the people of California. We want them to enjoy our neighborhoods. But this is just not the right time. It's just not the way for us to congregate. And I ask if people can please keep those things in mind and be tolerant of each other, not be political, not be judgmental, just put the health of our community and our nation first and foremost so that we can enjoy all the things that God has given us to enjoy in life. Most of all, each other. We need to live and support and help each other. So thank you for everything you're trying to do, but please, please, this needs new eyes, a fresh way of thinking. We're not being punished. We're just being asked to be reasonable people. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. So we'll take the next caller. Okay. So if you can hear me, make sure you've muted whatever you're watching us on. There is a delay and it will create an echo, but go ahead.
Okay, I have. This is Lori Morris, the Balboa Peninsula. I was wondering, with the restaurants and shops and businesses and everything closed, what exactly were 40,000 extra people going to do when they needed to use a restroom? With everything closed, we have a very few public facilities and a whole lot of beach. Even with all of the facilities were open or available Friday and Saturday, they still would not be enough to support that many people without having the restaurants and businesses open too. And while we are abiding by the stay home, stay safe recommendation, then why are we as a city subjecting public employees to clean up after 40,000 people using the few public facilities we have available? And we have to think about that for a moment and what that means. Like, do they have PPE available to them? How about the constantly replacing of soap and toilet paper? And that alone places them at risk. Not any of us, but them. So I don't know how sustainable that is without opening everything. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to the next caller. Okay, so you're on. If you wouldn't mind making sure you've muted whatever you're watching us on, and go ahead.
Yes. Okay, thank you. This is Mary Fitzgerald. I live in Newport Coast. First, glad to say that we are at such a low level of cases, and I've originally been so happy at our government and our local government that we stayed home, flattened the curve, and we are, should be proud of that. I'm really disheartened that we cannot wait another 2 or 3 weeks to open our beaches, because basically we're inviting the entire world. Certainly the other counties that are closed, they're all coming here. I know that you show those aerial images. I'm down at Corona Del Mar. We drive through. It was a zoo on the streets. Every parking spot was taken up. So I feel like, why not wait until the other beaches are open? Why do we have to be the mecca for everyone who's, deciding that they're going to supposedly exercise their right to freedom? But we also have a responsibility to our first responders. We have come this far. So why stop now? And it would be one thing if all the other beaches were open. They're not. And Diane, your idea about having Boy Scouts out, I'm so disappointed. Why would you want a child out there putting himself possibly at risk from someone who came from Colorado or Riverside or anywhere in this country that we have no idea what their status is? We've come this far. The businesses are closed. Our economy is wrecked. And the idea of mental health, what about all the poor people that live in Corona Del Mar that are now worried of all these people coming from all over the country? It just seems misguided at best for a strong country. Soldiers gave their lives. We can take a few weekends off the beach. They gave their lives for this country. I'm from New York City. I have friends. I have relatives that have one that has died from this. So it's not a joke. It's very, very real. So I pray that you reconsider for the next just a few more weeks. Don't invite everyone to Newport Beach. Our residents deserve to, be in their homes, be able to walk outside. We are so blessed. We have beautiful yards, most of us. If you live in an apartment, you probably have a wonderful courtyard. I have friends in New York City that are in one-room studios, and people around them are dying. So please just reconsider. Keep the beaches closed. 2, 3 more weeks. Don't bring everyone in here. We're so far ahead. You should congratulate yourselves. We flattened the curve. We didn't have a curve because we're socially distancing. We have a natural social distance. Why now say, oh, guess what? Us in Huntington Beach, a couple other people, come on down, everybody, and put our first responders at risk. Whoever wants to do that, you be the lifeguard. You go out and save the guy from Colorado who may not even know he's got the virus. Okay. Good luck. Stay safe, everybody.
All right, we'll go to the next caller. Okay. So if you hear me, just make sure you've muted whatever you're watching us on, and then go ahead and start speaking. Hi, can you hear us? All right, we'll go to the next caller. Okay. All right, if you can hear us, please make sure you've muted what you're watching us on and go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. This is Chris Nielsen. I split time between Salt Lake City, Utah and Newport Beach there. We're property owners, both the residents, and have short-term rentals there in Newport Beach. We are, I just wanted to comment on Mayor Will and Kevin Muldoon there with your comments. Great comments, data-driven. In Utah, we're being data-driven here on our responses and what we're able to do. We have followed protocols of the CDC. We've been looking and talking to the hospitals, seeing what the actual boots on the ground is there in that location. I found the data-driven presentation by the mayor and by Kevin Muldoon very, very well prepared. I found the eye rolling by Ms. Brenner offensive. And I really, really missed you, Councilman Muldoon, on the earlier emergency meeting concerning the short-term rentals. I think that was arbitrary and capricious at best, and I hope that's revisited here soon. We've been supporters through it and have shut down as has been asked. But I would ask on the next city council that is looked at, because we are taxpayers. We help support the services that are there. We're big proponents to the lifeguards. They're our lifeblood, to the police. Do a wonderful job, and we just love being a part of Newport Beach. I just really want to compliment the data-driven business mind of taking this data seriously and looking at it for the location. I want to compliment the earlier comment about taking it right to the local level. You've been elected here. You know what's best for your city, and we greatly appreciate your leadership. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And just to be clear, we are bringing back the short-term lodging the next meeting. So, all right, we'll go to the next speaker. Okay. All right, if you can hear me, just make sure you've muted what you're watching us on and go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Buzz. I live on the peninsula between 7th and 8th Street. I've lived here for 40 years. We're going through a very unprecedented and difficult time. One of the things that I've learned going through all of this right now is the one thing that we should be doing is practicing the social distancing. When I started watching the program here, I thought that we were going to be looking at the possibility of closing the beach, and it sounds like it's kind of a foregone conclusion that that's not going to happen, which is disappointing. I agree with what Councilman Herdman said. He brought up a lot of good points. What Councilman Muldoon said, I agree with you fundamentally, but I think we are, again, in a very unprecedented time right now with regard to this virus, and we're here to try to help the situation as individuals, as a city, as a country. And if you look at what happened, and I saw the pictures on TV, but I live here. I looked out there on the ocean front last week, and what I saw was something that was like the 4th of July. I saw the numbers, and I'm not going to debate the numbers, but I know by living here through every one of the 4th of Julys that was on the chart, last week was like that. And I understand that it's important for the people in the community to be able to get out and walk around at our beach. That makes sense. Maybe a consideration as opposed to keeping this up might be you could consider you have the beach open from 7 to 9, you close it from 9 to 2, and you open it from 3 to 5. That gives people a timeout. People don't want to come down. It would be a whole lot easier for our police staff to be able to police something like that or to enforce that. I don't understand how they're going to be able to enforce this. I watched them last week drive around on the quads. I love the police. I'm not ragging on them, but when they go up and ask the crowd to disperse, which they do, they get 10 feet down to the next group, and the group comes back together again. So I really feel that the thing that should be pursued is closing the beach. You could look at a time frame. You could do something. You could do something like, if people are going to be there, they're not allowed to go and congregate and sit down as a group. Some beaches have done that.
Okay.
They've approached it that way.
Thank you very much. That's
okay.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we'll go to the next speaker. Okay, please mute whatever you're watching us on and go ahead.
Hi, everyone. This is Mike Esty, born and raised Newport Beach. Just wanted to share with everyone some basic math on this matter that media and just about everybody refuses to look at. In Orange County, 4,900 people a year die from heart disease. 4,700 people a year die from cancer. 1,400 die from Alzheimer's. 1,300 die from a stroke. 993 die from chronic respiratory disease. 930 in Orange County die from accidents. In a typical year, we lose over 500 people to flu and pneumonia. Over 500 people a year to diabetes. Over 400 people to chronic liver and cirrhosis. Even nephritis and nephrosis, there's over 300 people that die a year. Why would we even consider closing our entire economy for 39 deaths? It makes absolutely zero common sense. Please, reopen the economy. Do not shut down the beaches. Let's turn this thing back on right now. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you. Next caller, please. Okay, so make sure you've muted whatever you're watching us on and go ahead.
I am a long-term beach resident, and my concern is this. The testing is such, and based on the current data from the CDC and the NIH, that 10 to 17% of people are asymptomatic. We don't fully understand a lot of the concepts regarding this virus, the viral load, how it spreads, and particularly we're finding out that there's other side effects, that there's other harm that's done to organs within the body. And my concern is you have people that are basically coming to the beach as a cauldron, and there's no way of tracking these people. There's no way of knowing where they're going when they leave the beach. The businesses are closed. What is the point, besides a fundamental right to public access to the beach, which I certainly understand and I agree with? But you have people coming here potentially being exposed to the virus asymptomatically in large numbers. There is no way of knowing valid data regarding that because we've tested approximately 2% of the whole U.S. population. So the numbers that are shown regarding the low infection rates are based on an erroneously small amount of data. So how can you know what's happening with this? We've made great gains in this state. And now we basically, for some sort of specious reason, are no longer willing to wait a little bit longer. The graphs clearly show that the infection rate, the deaths, are continuing. And yet, for some unknown reason that's related to liberty, we seem to be willing to sacrifice public health. Too many people are asymptomatic. Too few tests have been done. You are funneling people to Newport and to Huntington Beach. And there is no understanding, there is no objective data about these people. And when they leave the beach to go back to their respective communities, how many people they are infecting, how many of their loved ones, their family members, their friends, the people that come to their homes,
Okay.
that come to deliver, the first responders,
Thank you
how
very
many
much.
of these people are being asymptomatically
Next caller.
infected by the people that are
Thank you,
funneled
sir.
to the beach?
Sir,
The
the time
businesses
is up.
are closed
All right,
locally.
please drop off. We're going to
Time
go to the caller.
to stop.
Okay. Next caller, please. Okay, so if you would please mute your phone, then, or I'm sorry, mute whatever you are watching us on, and go ahead.
Okay, thank you. The previous caller, I don't know that I could express my sentiments as well as he did, but my family and I, we've lived in Newport since 1973, and I'm really upset over the fact that you are willing to play with the lives and the citizens of Newport Beach and let this influx of people coming from anywhere and everywhere into the city just to have a little fun for the day. It's disgusting. Where are all these people supposed to go to the bathroom? I thought all the public facilities were closed. The businesses are closed. That only leaves the ocean. Now, do you want to go swim in that ocean after 40,000 people have used it as their own personal bathroom? I don't. I think it's disgusting. You're putting the lives of our first responders, you're taking them away, the police and the firemen and the paramedics away from the people that might need it on those days, just to police the 40,000 people that are supposed to be staying home. I've been staying home. My family's been staying home. Why? Why did we do this then? Why? It goes counterproductive to what the governor wants. Even the governor wasn't happy with the city of Newport. I think it's an abomination, and I think the beaches need to be closed. What's a few weeks? What's it going to hurt? It's not going to increase any revenue. You can't get any parking money. You can't. The businesses are closed. So what are you going to do? Just let them sit there? If you want to let them go to the beach, keep people moving. Don't let them bring chairs. Don't let them bring coolers. Don't let them bring umbrellas. Don't let them sit there for all day. Let them walk. Let them exercise. Let them enjoy the beach. Let them enjoy the water. But don't sit there and have one big party, another spring break for the next number of weekends, and bring whatever they've got with them into our city where we have relatively no numbers and have tried to keep things and our people healthy. That's what I've got to say.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the next caller. Go ahead. All right, if you're on the phone, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Kevin Roberts. I've been a longtime resident of Newport Beach, Corona Del Mar, and I wanted to add in. I respect the issues concerning liberties. That's what our country is founded on. But living on the peninsula, with 40,000 people coming in a day with no facilities, people peeing on people's garages, just it's a horrendous deal out there. And I kind of think, I'm not a big fan of Governor Newsom by any means, but, we've got the governor telling us, chiding Newport Beach as being, why are we so special when the other counties have closed their beaches for a reason? And, there's absolutely no practicing of social distancing. People walk by the house, no one has a mask on, no one's doing anything to do it. It's a party. It's the 4th of July. And it's very, very, very unfair to the residents who have significant investments in their properties. And we understand, I'm all for freedom and all of that kind of thing, but the real world is these people are out here taking advantage of something that they shouldn't do and not practicing what is a foregone conclusion as being the best thing for how our state has stayed with this curve flattening. So either open it all up and create it to where there's facilities for everybody, or close it. Don't just have the peninsula as part of an open air deal where everybody can air their, and do everything. It's very unfair to the people of Newport Beach on the peninsula. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to the next caller. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been down here for 12 years. I'm down at 1 block from the beach. The OC register pictures were 100% accurate. 100% accurate. There was zero social distancing. I was there. I took pictures. I'm happy to take more this weekend, and I'm happy to forward them to whoever wants to see them. And I've got plenty of time because I'm not doing anything. It looked like the 4th of July down there. You know, it's inviting people from all over, not just neighboring cities. It's inviting people from counties, LA County. If they didn't go to Ventura, they came down here. You know, OC isn't sick as a whole because of our actions. Why are we inviting this here? There's 40,000 people down here, and it was every bit of that. You know, it's been contained to LA for now. We're inviting it here. We're bringing these people here because we're the beach that's open. They go north to Ventura or they're coming to Orange County, specifically Newport Beach. You know, let another beach city be the pilot program for this. Why are we risking what we've done to let people come down here? They're not spending money. I mean, the restaurants are getting some business. That's great. They're overpacked. There's no social distancing there. You know, why are we the pilot program for this? And to answer the previous couple gentlemen's question about heart disease and cancer, you idiot, they're not contagious. That's a simple answer. They're not contagious. That's why we don't care about them. That's why we don't close down for them. He's not as dumb as our president. That's all I have to say. I will be down there taking pictures if you guys don't close this down, or at least adopt what San Clemente's done. Running, walking, exercising, no beach chairs, no beach umbrellas. Give yourself something to enforce. Put something on a sign that tells people from neighboring cities and counties, do not come here. Go somewhere else. It's not rocket science. We don't need this now. We've been through this for how long? Why start over? And for anybody that thinks this is the light at the end of the tunnel, this is okay. Remember when the president said there was going to be 15 and it's going to go away like a miracle? Be that guy. You will be held accountable, I guarantee it. It's just asinine that we're even having this conversation. That's it.
Okay. All right, we'll go to the next caller. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Hello, hi, my name is Kathy. I live here in Newport Beach for many years. And I've seen a shift this week, and I kind of want to communicate that shift to you. Although the weather's been warm and it's been growing warm over the week, around Thursday, I heard on the news, I listen to news quite often. I stay home. I adhere to all the stay-at-home distance things. So I'm kind of, sequestered to my home, although I'd really rather be out riding my bike and doing other stuff. But I heard on the news that morning, they said, it's getting really hot, and the beaches are all closed in LA. They're all closed in San Diego, but they are going to be open in Newport. I heard that, and my jaw dropped open, and I went, oh my God, why are they saying this? And it said, yeah, it's going to be really warm and you should, and then they showed this pan over this aerial view of Venice Beach, which was completely shut down, and the police were in the parking lot and this and that. Well, don't come to Venice Beach. Then they show Laguna. Don't go to Laguna Beach. Oh, but Newport is open. They said like 5 times, and I thought, why are they doing this? And then Friday came, and the people arrived. And then Saturday, and we sit on our little patio, and we kind of find it our moment to just be out there. And come Saturday, it was just like 4th of July or any other summer day, which we grin and bear it because we live in Newport and this is the lifestyle. But it was a absolute deluge of cars, people trying to park in our little neighborhood. We couldn't even park our own cars. We had to shuffle our cars around because we couldn't get a parking space. And people walking by, no one was wearing a mask. They had beach chairs, coolers, very friendly, and they were coming from out of town. And there was nowhere to park by the beach, so they parked in our neighborhood. And Saturday around the afternoon, we came inside because it got warm. And all of a sudden, I yelled to my husband, who's that in our yard? There's a man who walked into our yard. He was drunk. He's like, hey. And my husband's like, excuse me. And my dog's barking. He says, oh, I lost my phone yesterday. I was kind of drunk. Can I look for it? And I'm like, okay,
thank you.
whatever. So.
All right. Okay. Next caller.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Kathy. All right, next caller. Okay, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Casey Dorman. I'm a longtime resident of Newport Beach. I've emailed several of you, and thank you for emailing me back. Am strongly in favor of closing the beaches. I look every day at the numbers that come out from the Orange County Health Care Agency, and neither the number of new cases nor the number of hospitalizations is going down. 3 or 4 days ago, we had the highest number of new cases recorded so far. Today was the highest number of hospitalizations. I think that our goal should be reducing these numbers, not just maintaining the status quo. The longer that we keep the numbers from going down, the longer we're all going to stay in our house. Secondly, I'm a psychologist. I spent 18 years working with the Orange County Mental Health Care Agency, and I've taught at several universities. I don't believe that opening a couple of beaches is going to be any kind of antidote to mental health problems caused by isolation. Furthermore, years of data have shown that the highest risk group for suicide in our country are older males, people over 65. They're probably not going to the beach, and if they are, they're also the highest risk for COVID-19, so they'll be risking themselves. So these are the points I wanted to make, and I have a couple of questions. Most of your procedures you've talked about so far appear to be to reduce traffic and parking problems. Is one of your goals to reduce the actual number of people on the beach? And second, if it is, what kind of measurements do you plan to use to see whether any of the things you're doing are effective? Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next caller, please. Okay, all right, go ahead.
Hi, Joyce Novak here. I'm a 15-year resident of Newport Beach, and I love it. First of all, thank you for all the work, everyone, that you're doing for our community. I truly appreciate it. Closing the beaches is a double-edged sword to me. I can see for safety reasons with so many people coming to Newport Beach from surrounding areas because all the other beaches are closed. It does create a lot more people at our beaches. But I also think it's really sad that Governor Newsom shows fake news photos to try and force us to close the beaches and belittle Newport Beach. I just thought that was awful. Shame on him. I'm sure you guys will make the right decision, and I trust your decision. As far as local businesses, please do not give in to fear. We need our businesses open. This is a great community, and we need to open and thrive again as soon as possible. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, next caller, please. All right, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lisa Johnson. I'm a resident here of Newport Beach. I just wanted to say I really want to urge the council to close the beaches. I think that should be your number one priority, should be protecting our health and well-being of the members of this community and not California's mental health at large. And I also hear callers conflating opening the economy with opening the beaches. Opening the beaches is not the same thing as opening the economy. And right now, we need to protect our public health. And I agree with the councilman who pointed out that the longer we allow our beaches to be open and the longer that we don't comply with stay-at-home orders, the longer we will be in this situation. That's all I have to say. Please, close the beaches. Protect our community and do your job. Because if you don't, in November, we will come for you.
All right, well, there's that. All right, next caller, please. Okay, all right, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. First of all, to all.
We lose you? Okay, all right, go ahead. Sorry, I think we lost her on that one. So for our folks on IT, I'm not hearing anyone coming through. Sorry, folks. Technical difficulties. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, go ahead. Your 2 minutes. Go ahead. You got 2 minutes.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you. I live in Newport Shores. My name is Carl Chicka. I want to just express my thanks for you supporting us and airing our views. This last weekend was unprecedented in terms of the conga lines that were lined up through our neighborhood. And you sensed the pent-up ire on the people who were looking for parking and circling literally for hours, counted people going by many, many times. It was a very aggressive sense of energy that was being brought into the community, even descending upon our private parking area for our clubhouse, where fisticuffs were almost brought to bear as people were trying to park in private parking spaces. I'm going to propose a hybrid solution here. Since our worst time in this community has been the weekends, why not limit or close the beaches from 10 to 5 on Saturdays and Sundays for the next 3 and just limit it to that? Because yesterday and today, there is no issue. But definitely on Saturday and Sunday, there was a significant issue. Thank you for listening to me, and I appreciate and support your decision.
Thank you very much. All right, next caller, please. All right, is there a next caller?
Yes, my name is Cheryl Johnson. My husband and I have lived on Ocean Boulevard for 21 years. Yes, we built across from the beach. Crowds are expected and crowds are welcomed in normal times. But right now, these are not normal times. In the past couple of weeks, we have seen massive crowds on Ocean Boulevard, and it has become downright dangerous. We compare it to the war zone on the peninsula. We know we used to live on 32nd Street. Dangerous in 2 ways. First, and most obvious, way too many people to be able to social distance, and therefore the potential spread of the virus becomes worse. And second, unlike the peninsula, Ocean Boulevard is only a 2-lane street with parking on both sides and narrow sidewalks. There's barely enough room for cars to get through, let alone trying to deal with the hordes of people trying to access the beach. People have resorted to exercising, walking, and running in the street as it is too narrow on the sidewalks, pushing their baby strollers and wheelchairs in and out of traffic, dragging their children with all the wagons, beach toys, and coolers out in the street with all the traffic, in hopes that the cars will stop to let them through to the other side. It is frightening and it is dangerous. When we mention or ask that you please close the beaches and all the streets leading to the beach, the issue of mental well-being crops up. And I did receive your email, your response email, Mr. Mayor. You encouraged me to watch the interview that you conducted with doctors at Hoag regarding whole community health and the mental well-being of the people. So I did. When you were conversing with Dr. BZ, your words were, and I quote, "In Newport Beach, we tried very, very hard to make sure open spaces are open so that people can get out, as long as they're social distancing and staying close to their neighborhoods. We've been messaging that," end quote. My response to you is good messaging, good intentions, but no results. In Corona Del Mar, our beaches are overcrowded, minimal social distancing, and many people did not stay close to their neighborhoods. Thousands of people poured into our communities from other areas, make it impossible to social distance. Our community as a whole is doing a great job, but we cannot control what's coming in from the outside. So how are we going to fix that? We need a different action plan, and we beg that you please give us an action plan that we, the citizens, don't have to enforce ourselves.
All right. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
All right. Next caller, please. All right. Go ahead.
Hi. First, I want to thank you all, and thank you, Mayor, and thank you to all of you for doing this today. I'm going to go fast. I've lived here since I watched the first man walk on the moon on Seashore when I was on Seashore Drive. So I've been here for a long time. So when we moved to the peninsula, I knew what we were getting into. We love the summer and the hustle and the bustle is fun. Down here, it's never boring, that's for sure, but not now. As of 5 o'clock today, I sent to some of you a copy. We are all under a stay-at-home order, not a stay-at-home suggestion from our governor. It's on the state of California website. You can look it up. We've been told to go outside and exercise in our own neighborhood. And if you can ride your bike there, I consider that your own neighborhood. So anybody who can ride their bike down here, I think they should come. The past 2 weekends, we have had hundreds of people coming to G Street and beyond, ignoring the very clear city sign that you have posted on the Peninsula Point area, indicating that everything past there is closed. What's happened, as you probably know, is that people are just stepping over the barricades and fences and trampling out onto the beach. Our police officers are technically handcuffed themselves and that they can't issue everyone citations, and I feel badly for them. In order to address this issue, I believe you should either close it all down like LA County, and I wonder why LA County isn't open with their beaches. There must be a reason why, and I don't know why we're not following that reason since we're attached to them, but or you should open everything up, including businesses, so there are bathrooms, because all these callers before me are all right. People are just using our homes and front porches and patios as a urinal, and it's gross. And we're picking up their trash, their gloves, their food, etc. You know. Also, thank you for your service and caring for all of us. I guess my big thing is I don't like to see civil disobedience. It's not good, and if we open up the beaches, then people won't be breaking the law like they're doing now, and I think it's just disgraceful, and it's putting us all at risk. So thank you, and I hope you guys can hang in there for the rest of these calls and not fall asleep, but you're all doing a really good job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next caller, please. All right, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor O'Neill and council members. My name is Brian Schuler. I'm a resident of Westcliff and own a small business down on Balboa Island. And I want to thank you all for your time today and your service in general. I can only imagine, we're all in such a weird situation right now trying to deal with all this. And I know you got people too, your residents too, and you're having to cope with the same things we all are. I heard a few different comments, one of which I agreed with, that the person said earlier, guy who lived, I think it was Buzz, living on the peninsula, that we are in unprecedented times. That's true, but I think we're leaning towards fear managing and well away from fact resolving. And that's something I've been trying to communicate, and I know Mayor O'Neill and Mr. Herdman, you've also heard from me previously in the week. My vote, just to state it, is I'd like to keep the beaches open. I think that just makes so much sense. What we saw in those pictures are all the proof you need to know that people are, not the whole world showing up, not all 3.2 million Orange Countyans and surrounding counties are deciding to go to the beach. In fact, I would also vote for opening up the parking. I think that spreads people out naturally. It makes common sense. Some other callers had pointed that out. Putting Boy Scouts in the street is ridiculous. As far as, and plus, and having our police do that work is just silly. We're not in the police state, nor do we want to act like that. I think we should let the people spread out. We should be able to use all of our public sidewalks, in my opinion. I think that's our given gift from our government, which we as taxpayers pay for. And I don't understand why we think we can police that so much. But in my case, I had my little business in Balboa Island, and I'm really deeply affected by what they've done to close down the surrounding walk. And I understand why. I think one way worked well. Now we've got people in the alleys going both directions with cars and bikes. It doesn't make sense. We've, in my mind, made a bigger problem. Going beyond that, I just think that...
So that's 2 minutes. So thank you very much for calling in. Thank you. All right, next caller, please. All right, go ahead. Hi, if you can hear me, go ahead. We lost him. All right, next caller. All right, go ahead.
Hi, so I'm a resident here in 29th Street on the peninsula. Couple things I wanted to say. First of all, I think it's pretty disingenuous that we're only considering this ultimatum of close the beaches or leave the beaches open. If we truly care about the mental health of the residents of the Newport Beach community and our city, why not just close the roadways? Here we are talking about doubling the police presence to enforce traffic conditions to better them on residential streets. Why don't we just close the streets off to the people coming in from out of the city? We don't have to close the beaches to the people who live here, but leaving our beaches open and openly inviting people from all across the southern part of California seems a little bit irrational. I think we're a little bit better than this. We don't have to be debating about liberty this or close the beaches that. Like, let's just take the middle ground. Let's have a little bit of decency in our thought, and that's all I gotta say.
All right, thank you. Next caller, please. All right, go ahead.
Hi.
Hi, go ahead.
My name is Kathy Kroof. Hi, Will and Jeff. I first want to thank you both for responding to all my emails, and I appreciate what the council and what you both have been doing to help us remain safe in our community. First, I want to say I am for closing the beaches, but in that same vein, I would like you to open up the parks in our neighborhoods and the tennis courts and the pickleball courts to give everybody some type of activity. I feel that people are not going to come from Riverside, San Bernardino, San Diego to come and enjoy our parks. I think we would be safe in doing that and have people practice social distancing. I also want to remind all of you, and I think we should really consider this as a very important fact, that we're still under that shelter law by Governor Newsom, and that, to go to the beach and be allowed to sit with beach chairs and picnicking is against what we're all been staying home to sacrifice to avoid what people did this past weekend. I also want to say that, I hear all these percentages and everything else, but when you look at Newport Beach, we have 97 positives, and that's not people that are asymptomatic. And how many people are out there that haven't been tested are now positive? But you only have to realize that we have only 87,000 people. You compare that to Anaheim or Irvine that has 129 positives, but they have 280,000 people. So actually, we're really the highest amount of people per resident that has the virus. So why is that? Because everyone's coming here probably from the beach. I'm sorry, coming here from other areas. And this is where the risk is. So I encourage you to open up the parks, and I encourage you to make sure the hiking trails are open. And last of all, and again, more important, is have the protocol ready in 2 weeks for all the businesses to open up. Have it all organized, explaining how to keep us safe to all the business owners. That is what's important. We just can't say everything's opening up, just like Florida did and just like Texas. It's going to be very interesting in 2 weeks to see what happens.
Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Will. Bye-bye.
All right, we'll go to the next caller. All right, go ahead.
Hello, my name's James. I'm I've been a resident of Newport Beach for about 30 years, down in the Corona del Mar flower streets and then up here in Newport Coast. And I just like to put my say out here. I think the beaches should be open. I hear a lot of people being afraid, and some of it I think I personally find it's a needless fear. When I've watched some of this very closely, and there's been studies that show that we all are afraid of the virus. Nobody wants to get sick. I'm not saying it's not something to be concerned of, but they say the transmission, where people are actually getting the virus, is through public transportation and in closed buildings. And there's been a study that showed very little, if almost no transmission occurs outside, let alone on a sunny beach. So it just seems like that's a natural place where we actually should go, because it's got not only the therapeutic and a chance to get out of the house and recreation, but your chances of actually spreading the virus on the beach is slim to nil. And so I think there's a lot of needless worry. And if anything, there's a side benefit that I believe that probably even circulating here is this thing called herd immunity. And that is, you're not likely to get a dose of virus by a passerby on the beach, but you might get a particle or two to start your immune system up. But, I'm not a doctor, I'm not the science, but that's some of the stuff. So I'm very much for keeping the beaches open. I think it's on a broader thing that the benefits outweigh the costs. I think closing the beaches is needless fear. You most sooner close the grocery store than close the beach. So that's my point, and I'll let it go at that.
All right. Thank you very much. Just for my colleagues' sake, there's 20 minutes left. All right, we'll go to the next caller. Okay, go ahead.
Hi there. My name is Nikki Murphy, resident of Newport Beach for almost 20 years, Newport Coast resident, actually. Big fan of Diane Dixon and really respect all of you. I do want to say that I believe everyone is saying to close the beaches. If you don't close the beaches, then you're really not listening to what Newport Beach wants. I do agree with all the other callers that say that people are coming in from other places. I grew up in Inland Empire. This is where everybody wants to come. They want to come to Newport Beach. It's not fair for the residents here who pay the taxes, who live here, who chose to move here and work hard here. I don't like threats, but I definitely do want to say that, we voted for you, and you've got to listen to us. You got to remember that we're who you were taking care of. We've got to care for our family, our friends. My son is at UCLA pre-med. He is definitely staying at home, not going to the beach. He's 21 years old. My daughter is at CDM High School, 18 years old. She wants to go out. We're not. We're staying at home. We're doing what's right. So I just ask you, please do what's right. Please close the beaches, not forever, just for a short time until we can slow the spread even more, so we don't inundate our beautiful Hoag Hospital, so we don't feel like everyone else failed us. So please, always do what you've always done for us. Take care of us. We love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next caller, please. All right, go ahead. Hi, if you can hear me, go ahead. Hi, if you can hear me, maybe your phone's on mute?
It is on. Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay. Now you're good. Go ahead.
Good. Thank you. I'm a businessman. I've served on the board of directors of 12 public companies, most of them listed on the New York Stock Exchange. I like business, but I don't like politics. Please remember a few items as you make your decision. First, remember you could be wrong, and make sure you fully understand the implications if you are. The history of pandemics suggests things will get worse, not better. Future waves may and likely will be worse. Nobody yet fully knows and understands the disease or what will happen next. COVID-19 won't be solved until we have a vaccine.
At this point, the fastest vaccine is yet to be developed is 4 years. Right now, Orange County and Newport Beach are outliers. Let's make sure we understand why. It's not unpatriotic to ask people to shelter in place for just a bit longer. Sacrifices made by so many in our country and the world far exceed what is being asked. Even in California, more is being asked of our fellow citizens. It's my understanding that San Diego Harbor has been closed. When the economy is opened up, and I hope it is done so in rational stages as quickly and safely as possible. If we get this wrong, however, not only will people die, but the damage to the economy will be far more significant and long-lasting than what we had experienced. Until we have a treatment and cure, society will only slowly move to what was previously normal. If we breach trust by moving too quickly, commerce will suffer tremendously. The truth matters. I don't know what's going on with the photos, but somebody should have done more work to reconcile the two photos. Both of those cannot be right. Or if they are, they deserve further explanation. And I suggest to Mr. Muldoon that he makes sure that he's forthright and honest. If the media is wrong, point it out, and let's make sure that they pay for it. But if you're playing games with us, shame on you.
All right, next caller, please.
Am I on mute? Oh, I'm not playing games. That's testimony of our police chief. No shame on me or him for being forthright. The angle that you saw, I guess, was at Corona Del Mar Beach, and the chief can testify that there were social distancing there as well. The angle I don't think was intentionally misleading, but publicizing it as fact was a little premature. It looked more crowded based on that angle. I do think there were clusters of people gathering, but I don't think that my law enforcement and police officers and lifeguards and members of the fire department were misleading you, and I think it's wrong for you to try to shame anyone on our staff. I think that we are very honest people, and my intention is to be as honest as possible. Thank you.
All right, we have someone on the phone, so go ahead.
Yes, I just want to thank you for the time. My name is Frank, and just wanted to let you know that my wife has worked in small business there in Newport for the past 25 years. And we have some great friends that are small business owners as well that are being affected by this shutdown. My wife and her friends depend on their clients who they really appreciate and love, but they are suffering. My wife and us, there's bills that need to be paid, rent needs to be paid, mortgage needs to be paid, college tuition, and food needs to be provided for our family. So when this shutdown came to play in March, that's almost now 2 months. We're going on 2 months of that. So mentally, it's been hard for my wife and her friends that own these small businesses. So mentally, it's been hard for them. They provide a service that helps their clients out as well. They provide a therapy to them from the services that they provide to them. So those residents of Newport that go to them, they are being affected as well. So I'm just asking you guys to just please consider opening up, because the data does not support this full shutdown. People are saying to depend on the science. The science does not support Newport and Orange County to be in a full shutdown. Trust your businesses to make the right decisions with safety measures, distancing, masks, gloves, all that needs to be in place. And the people that decide to go into work, that's their choice to go into work. And the clients that decide to go into these businesses, my wife's business, that's their choice. If they don't not feel that it's appropriate or it's a good, safe time, then they don't have to go. But the businesses, I hope that you guys consider to open them up to get back to some sense of normalcy here, or these small businesses are not going to recover from this shutdown. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next caller, please. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, how are you? My name is Scott, and I'm a resident of Newport Beach. I've lived here my entire life. I own a small business in Newport Beach, and I have to implore you guys to please keep the beaches open. And let's get businesses back on track. Like I said, I own a small business here in Newport. Let's get businesses on track as soon as possible. It was my daughter's birthday on Saturday. She turned 4, and me and her mother and her went down to the beach, and we were at 48th Street. And I can tell you firsthand that everybody was social distancing, so much so that the police and the lifeguards were driving by thanking people for their social distancing. I'm pretty certain that nobody caught COVID at the beach this weekend. I can also tell you firsthand that the public restrooms were open. I used one myself. And I think that we need to do what's right for the citizens of Newport Beach, which is to keep the beaches open. You know, my daughter can't go to Mariners Park or Irvine Terrace Park or any of the other parks that we go to because those are obviously closed. But we can go to the beach, and it was an amazing beach weekend. It was so good. We went back on Sunday. So the fact that Governor Newsom says that we can go to pop dispensaries, liquor stores, and we can buy lottery tickets, but we can't go to the beach is ridiculous. So thank you for your work, and have a great night.
Wish your daughter a happy birthday from the Newport Beach City Council.
Thank you so much.
Caller, please. All right, go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi. My name is Randy Duarte, 30-year resident of beautiful Newport Beach, California. Very disturbed what went on last weekend. I live on the peninsula. We don't have a big front yard. We have a small porch, which we cannot use because if we sit on our porch, we face the possibility of being infected by runners, bike riders, walkers, whatever possible people on motorized vehicles, right down the sidewalks. Bikes, motorized vehicles happen to both be illegal on the sidewalks, but I've never seen a cop do one thing to those people. We can't go out our garage to our alleyway because the alleyway is a bike path and a running path and a walkway because the boardwalk has been closed. So I can't go out to the front of my home. I can't go out to the rear of my home because of thousands of tourists that are coming by our house daily. We can't leave to go anywhere and run an errand because we can't come back and park. We can't go across the street to Marina Park because it's a open air gym now. In fact, as I'm speaking to you, I am watching a group of 12 to 15 people grouped up exercising together. Now, all I want to do as a 30-year resident of Newport Beach is I'd love to go out and get some exercise. I'd love to go out and get some fresh air. I'd love to walk on the beach, but unfortunately, I cannot do that safely, especially on the weekend. Your decision, you guys got to live with it. All I say is if you guys decide to keep these beaches open, I think every one of you needs to drag your towels out there on Saturday, put up your umbrella, sit out there for 5 hours, and then come and tell us that there's no risk. You'll be hiding in your houses. Talk about fear. If you believe in the herd mentality, which of the 10 of you want to go? That's all I have to say. Close the beaches. If you don't close the beaches, at least, please, close the roadways to the beaches. Leave them open for the Newport Beach public, and then open up the boardwalk again. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay. We're the next caller. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is hello. Yes. Hi, my name is Carmen Rossum. Are you ready? And what I would like to say is that many people being shown the out-of-towners bringing COVID-19, but it starts with a resident. I have a neighbor who has been resident in Newport Beach for many, many years. 2 people live in the household. They had 10 people visiting them Saturday and Sunday. So the virus doesn't know if you are on the sand or on a street or inside a household. We are not helping when the residents themselves do this. There is no difference of somebody being from Colorado, Utah, Santa Ana, or Newport Coast. So what I would like to propose is really make mandatory wearing masks outside. For your information, back in 2003, when the original SARS happened, I lived and worked in China. This was not a pandemic, SARS. It was not, we had only 27 cases in the US. We have many more cases in China, but they made a mandatory back then for us to wear a mask. And I know it doesn't replace social distancing, but it makes a difference. Also, people working in construction wear a mask. Like somebody said, we have flattened the curve. Well, in Newport Beach, we have done okay compared with other cities. But no, don't look at the number of cases by 100,000 people living in the city. The virus doesn't know how many people live in the city. They don't know your zip code. But Newport Beach has 64 cases since March 27th. Costa Mesa has 29 only. They have done a better job wearing masks. Santa Ana has 300 additional cases. Anaheim has 263 additional cases. We haven't flattened the curve, and all the other cities also flattened their curve. We need more data to make an intelligent decision and pass forward. We need more data from the Orange County Health Care Agency, where they tell us, okay, these cases are they in Corona del Mar and Balboa Peninsula, where I live, or are they in Newport Coast? Are they travel related or person to person or community acquired? All the granularity needs to be known.
Thank you, Carmen.
Implement decisions. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Next caller, please. There's only 5 minutes left for everyone to know on public comment. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry, we don't have anyone yet. Okay, if you can hear me, go ahead. There you go. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, my name is Peter. I live on Balboa Peninsula, longtime resident of Newport Beach. And I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to all the citizens here and for all your help. First off, I hear a lot of numbers thrown around out there about the COVID positive deaths in OC, Newport Beach. The problem is that we really don't know. And that is, we don't know who's walking around with the virus but don't show any signs. It could be you, me, visitors. We just don't know at this point in time. And my point here is that by keeping the beaches open while all the other counties and towns around us are closed, only encourages those people with the most risky behavior to come to Newport Beach. And I ask you, why do we want to expose our residents, our city employees, and our police to this type of risk? I don't think we do. And lastly, has anyone on the council really taken a look in terms of determining the total cost for all the extra patrols on the beach and adjacent areas? And if you have, I'd encourage you to give me a response off the air, and I look forward to hearing your response. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. Next caller, please. All right, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
You need to mute what you're watching us on.
And do you hear, it's muted now. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you can go right ahead.
Wonderful, thank you. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go right ahead, please.
Wonderful. First, I want to thank you. My name is Lisa Cassell. I live on the peninsula, on the beach, and it was like the 4th of July this weekend. I really want to state that right now we are talking about the health and safety of our citizens. This is not a political situation. This is not a data situation. This is about people who can get sick. I'd like to recommend that not only, thank you. Can you hear me?
We can. Go right ahead, please.
Wonderful. First, I want to thank you. My name is Lisa Cassell. I live on the peninsula.
Hi, Lisa. Are you muted?
It was like the 4th of July. I will mute that. And I didn't get to finish, so I do want to add on that I think it's really important that we close the beach. I think it is vital for the health and safety of those around us. I think that if we need to set up walkways or bikeways, if we have anything open directionally, I don't think we should have people sunbathing. I think it is essential that each of us do our part just for a few months. It is really the big picture of making sure that we all get through this well. Nobody wants their brother, their sister, their mother, or their grandmother to be ill. and we're talking about human life, not data points. So I beg you, please close the beaches. Let's keep all of us safe. Thank you for all that you do to help keep our community and all of our citizens happy. Thanks for your service.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go to our last caller. Okay, go ahead.
Hi there. I just want to say thank you all. You guys have done an amazing job today. I do vote that we keep the beaches open. I have a young son, and in a world that's shrunk considerably for him, he is so grateful to, and I am as well, that I don't have to explain why the beach right next to our house is closed. I do recommend maybe considering having the bathrooms reopened, just so that sanitary issues aren't, contaminating our waters or our beaches. But thank you for all of your guys' time. You guys are amazing. And when we also consider the summer months coming and residents that may not have air-conditioned units, we might want to consider the reason and the wisdom of keeping the beaches and the parks open so that young children and older residences can get that fresh air, get that exercise without being cooped up in their home during the hot summer months. So thank you all, and I hope you have a beautiful day.
Thank you very much for calling in. All right, with that, I'm going to close public comment and come back to council. So what we're going to do is we're going to take each attachment in order. So attachment A is the resolution that would create the ad hoc committee. Do we have any discussion on that item? All right, I'm sorry, Ms. Brenner, go ahead. Yeah, you need to unmute, sorry. Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, as far as the reopening committee goes, I am wholeheartedly in favor of that. And I'm sending a note to Gavin Newsom saying that people would be much safer in their jobs than they are on Ocean Boulevard in Newport Beach.
I appreciate that. Then I'm going to go ahead with staff recommendation as to attachment A. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Muldoon. I'm going to need to poll, so I'm going to go by dais left to right. Mr. Herdman? All right, I need, there you go. Mr. Herdman? All right, thank you.
I am in favor of the motion.
I appreciate that. Sorry, you were on mute. All right.
I wasn't on mute. Did somebody have me on mute?
Probably.
Okay.
We kind of all get put on mute at some point during this whole thing. All right, Mr. Muldoon.
Yes.
Ms. Dixon.
Yes.
Brenner? Sorry, Ms. Brenner.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Duffield.
Yes.
Mr. Avery.
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. All right, on attachment B, that is the resolution to support the Orange County Board of Supervisors efforts. Do I have any discussion on this?
Is it moot now that they've?
It is not moot.
Okay.
Nope.
I move, yes.
All right, moved by Councilmember Dixon.
Yeah, I'll second what I want to say a couple of things, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely. So seconded by Mr. Muldoon and Mr. Muldoon. Go ahead.
Thank you. I think I understand the fear. Well, I'll tell you, it's distressing to hear people so afraid because our doctors at Hoag are saying there's nothing to be afraid of. We do this curve, and these Hoag doctors, they are the experts. They're the best educated, most dedicated people you could imagine. I'm not saying be reckless, but there really is no reason to be afraid or angry at your neighbors. It's not good for your health, and it's not good for your heart. I understand the frustration. I do not support any illegal activity when saying I want beaches and businesses to be open. Quite the opposite. As far as property value, some people are worried about property value of their homes, and understand if the economy were to crash, if we don't get the economy open, which Mayor Will has a great idea for locally in the city, and Councilman Dixon for supporting the county. If we don't get the economy open, there's going to be a point of no return. We have 26 million unemployed people. And in Newport Beach, we're pretty blessed. A lot of people are retired and have a good nest egg. But home valuations, 401ks, livelihoods, life savings are going to be destroyed if we don't have a plan to get back to work. And I think it's easy, especially now, to be so mad at our neighbors or council members. Most of the cities have the beaches open except for LA, and LA has worse numbers than we do. So I don't think closing the beaches is the answer. I wanted to make that point. The only other area that has a closed beach is Laguna. The state beaches are open, Huntington Beach is open, South County is open. But these all, I think, go together. It's about planning for the future. It's about looking to the horizon. And is it possible this pandemic comes back in fall? Of course it is. And no one wants us to be flat-footed when that occurs. We want to be prepared. We have to be prepared to get the economy going as well. So, Councilman Dixon, this is a great proposal. I'm happy to support it with a second.
All right, great. Do we have any discussion on this item? Further discussion? Seeing that, I'm going to poll. Mr. Herdman?
Yeah, I vote aye.
Mr. Muldoon?
Aye.
Dixon?
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Brenner?
Aye.
Mr. Duffield?
Aye.
Mr. Avery? All right. Yeah, there you go. It was an aye by Mr. Avery. I'm an aye as well. And then as we get into attachment C, which would be an emergency ordinance of the city council to beaches on city control beaches on May 2nd, 3rd, 9th, 10th, 16th, 17th.
I'm going to make a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Muldoon.
I move to deny the item.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Duffield. Any further discussion on this? Ms. Brenner?
Oh my. I kind of saved my remark. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I kind of saved my remarks. There was a motorcycle going by. I don't know. Hold on. Okay, so I saved my remarks until we'd heard all the public comments on this. And I really need to say a few things because my district is one of the districts that is getting slammed by the traffic. If we could drop people onto our beaches and have them social distance by helicopter, I'd say, great. I don't see the beaches as the problem, but I see getting to the beaches and I see what's happening on our streets as the problem. And I'm not convinced that the measures that we can take are going to do the job. And I'm really concerned about the amount of manpower that it's going to take from our public officials. I'd like to hear Grace tell us what the approximate cost she think would be of us trying to manage the problem that way. And I'll tell you what I have been saying for 5 or 6 weeks now is that my concern is we have an open house sign out. We have a sign out that says, welcome, y'all come down to Newport Beach. And our actions, it's really important that our actions convey the message that we want to send to the much broader community, because this is not just about local people going to our beaches for their mental health. And one of the things that, Kevin, sorry if I rolled my eyes at one point, but I have to tell you, you mentioned the people who have fought and died for our liberties. And it just struck me so funny because it's like we're being asked to shelter in place for a few weeks. And those people, I mean, they put their lives on hold and went to foreign lands to storm Normandy Beach. And heaven forbid if we were being asked to do that, because it doesn't seem like we have the wherewithal these days to put ourselves at any inconvenience. So, you know, I think one of the lessons that we are giving our children is if you don't like the laws that are in place, don't abide by them. It's like, are we telling our kids, I'm sorry, this is inconvenient and you're not going to be able to enjoy the beach for a while, so you don't have to do that. Well, that's got a much bigger consequence in our society as far as, you know, as they grow up, they're going to have bosses whose rules they don't necessarily like. They're not all going to be the CEO to start out with. And they're going to have rules that they have to abide with that they don't necessarily like. And it's going to be inconvenient, and they're going to have to work hours they don't want to work. And it's like, we're telling them, I'm sorry, these are the rules from the president and the governor that you're supposed to stay close to home. Well, one of the things that I would like to make as an alternate motion is that we make our beaches active use only, because I think that would solve a great deal of our problem. If you're allowed to go to the beach and keep moving and not bring beach chairs and not bring umbrellas and not bring coolers, you can go to the beach, you can exercise, you can surf, but then you have to go somewhere else. You can't sit there. And what that means is that if you are very far from home, then you've got to go home to go to the bathroom, or you've got to go home to get something to eat. It's like that would maybe solve some of our problems. And I thought one of the callers that said, what if you're wrong, was really important, because we can hear all this speculation, and our doctors at Hoag are doing a great job, and we're thrilled about that. But there's also doctors across the nation that are saying that we need to take this really seriously. And I think one of the things that I'm concerned about with the good news from Hoag and the good news that you're reporting is that it can make us blasé. And I drove from Cameo Shores and Cameo Highlands through the village on Saturday. I went down all the way to the end of the peninsula. I went to West Newport. And as I was driving along, I'm thinking, this isn't so bad. I was there kind of late in the day on Saturday thinking, okay, it's busy, but this is manageable. And I realized I wasn't thinking about the virus. I was looking at it in terms of, okay, this is a busy day in Newport Beach. We can manage this. But even I have found myself being less, I'm washing my hands a little bit less. I'm not thinking as much about it as I was before. And it's really important that we all continue to be vigilant, because if we're wrong, and if we go back to the fall and we hit an even bigger spike and we have to close our businesses down, then it's going to be doubly dramatic, and it's going to be doubly hurtful. And so, yes, I am very much in favor of us letting people work that can work with the safety measures in place. But by telling the Inland Empire to come to Newport Beach and spend all day, we are defeating the purpose. And maybe we're not going to see the spike in Newport Beach, or maybe we will, but we may be encouraging those spikes in other places, and that's going to encourage the governor to have us go back into lockdown mode. It's like, this is so much bigger than just our little time at the beach, and we're all having to make sacrifices. I haven't hugged my grandchildren in 6 weeks, and that's a major sacrifice. So, I just think that we can't afford to be so blasé about this. And so my substitute motion would be that we make Newport Beach active use only.
I would second that motion.
And I want to make some comments also, Will.
As do I, Will.
All right. Okay, Mr. Herdman, go ahead.
Some of my comments are going to be repetitive, but I want them to be at the end of this discussion. Our citizens need to be able to use their own city and feel safe in it, not 40,000 town people. Businesses should open slowly and responsibly, but a day at the beach is not essential right now. Closing our beaches for the next 3 weekends is not the same as getting back to work. You can't even compare the two, in my opinion. Beaches themselves are not so much the problem here. Diana said it. Joy has said it. It's the convergence of people on our city and what happens in their getting to the beach that is the issue here. And then I just want to, there's one other thing I want to say. It's a personal comment. On Sunday, my son Jeff Jr. called me. He lives in Manhattan Beach. He called and he said, "Dad, are your beaches closed?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, ours are." And it's like a ghost town here. And then his next question was, why aren't beach cities all up and down the coast doing the same thing to get this thing over with? And he said, unless we don't, this is just going to keep going on and on and on. The last comment I want to make is that public comments tonight were overwhelmingly in support of us closing our beaches over the next 3 weekends. However, I will support, and I do support, Joy's suggestion of recreation only on our beaches. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Muldoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in rebuttal to Councilman Brenner's statements, I welcome eye rolling with a friend. It's all good. But, it's not about inconveniencing. It's not about a temporary inconvenience. When I think of, people know me, I'm most proud of my family who's fought in this country since the revolution. And the stories have handed down as to what that fighting was about. And that was not about inconveniencing. Back in the days of independence, it was more likely you would die from a disease than other causes, including war. In every war that we fought, especially on American soil, 1776, 1812, Civil War, our ancestors and their families were fighting for the right to be free without oppression. Now, the citizens of Newport Beach, I would submit to California and the nation, have made many sacrifices. There are red lines right now as we speak across the country. The unemployment rates are something we've never seen before. At the end of the day, this is not about people not being willing to sacrifice more. This is about losing much more than what's at stake with a couple more weeks. This is about an economy that we might not be able to save. This is about people continuing. I disagree. And I believe that the 26 million unemployment number is real. I believe that people are feeling real pain. I know businesses in Newport Beach that will never open again. I know business owners and employees that are crushed and scared. And scare tactics is not the solution. Wise, slow reopening is. And there is no need for us to play some game as if people are just going to want to move along the beach. This is America. People have the right to free movement. If they're being responsible, it's on them. If they're being not responsible, it's also on them. But it's up to the individual. That is a founding principle of this country. And it is not merely about inconvenience. It is about, like I believe, those God-given rights. And I understand that there's a lot of fear going on. But when the experts of the Hogue are saying we flatten the curve, when we're seeing change behavior, we're seeing people take this very seriously and be very responsible, except for a couple, a minority of them. We know that we are capable of living our own lives, determining our own destiny, and living in freedom. To have a government continue to control our lives is not acceptable to the American people. And I believe in most of these emails I've gotten, those emails have been, keep the beach open. Kids need something to do. Locals need time to decompress. If people come to our beaches, it's a free country. They're allowed to transport here. Are we saying that you should come here and break the rules and be unlawful? Of course not. We're saying quite the opposite. Please social distance and please follow our rules. But so many other beaches are now starting to open. We're seeing the trend go the opposite way. So to me, it's counterintuitive to want to go to closing when more and more beaches are opening. So obviously, I'll be voting against Ms. Brenner's substitute. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Dixon, you're on mute.
Okay, I've got a dog barking in the background, so excuse me. Anyway, a couple questions. As Grace and/or Chief Lewis within earshot?
I'm here.
Okay, so could we have some real life examples now? Other cities, communities are opening their beach and practicing the exercise only. And the reason I second the motion, I wanted to have this discussion because that's where I would have inclined to support, but I'm concerned about its enforceability and how it works. Grace or Chief Lewis, could you please enlighten me?
Yes, I can certainly start. I know that we have been in communication with the audio okay here? Okay. We've been in touch with the city of San Clemente, which they did open up this past weekend with that active beach regulation in place there. And we did hear it was pretty challenging to be able to enforce to that there is some resistance from the beach goers. And, you know, it can be a bit challenging when you have small children. If they're sitting down, they're not allowed to sit, and to get them to, you know, so finding that right way to enforce, I think is pretty challenging for them. And in fact, I do know that they are revisiting their policy today at the same time we are. So I don't know what their end result is, and if they're going to be changing in any ways on a go-forward basis. But I do have concerns from an enforceability standpoint, and that really getting our staff into discussions or heated, you know, challenges, that sort of thing with beachgoers. I do have that concern. I mean, it's certainly something we could try, but I do have some concerns along those lines.
So the reason I asked about Chief Lewis to come to the mic, because is that something that can be enforced by the lifeguards, or would we really become more aggressive on the enforcement if somebody is insisting that they're going to go back in the water, or they're just taking a break and doing push-ups and then swim? Maybe the chief, can you speak to the practicality of this? I wish it were easy to do. I would sign up immediately, but I'm just concerned with these experiences you're pointing out. Chief Lewis, are you there?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, John Lewis, I'm here, ma'am. And I think there are some concerns about enforceability to that. And we would have to spend some time with San Clemente and see where they had those issues and how they address them, and maybe learn from their experience. But I think some of the challenges that you mentioned are ones that present some real concerns for us, you know, in terms of how do we define what is active? You know, is that laying on a yoga mat, or is it running? I mean, you can imagine the possibility of scenarios out there for our lifeguards and for our police officers to have to deal with it. So I think it could be challenging, to answer your question directly, ma'am.
All right, thank you. I still have another question, but let Ms. Brenner go. I was going to move on to another point of this, but go ahead.
Okay, can I just add to that? Sorry, can I add to? Oh, what? Can you hear me? Okay, John, my question is, if you're trying to enforce, or if the lifeguards are trying to enforce not bringing coolers and umbrellas and beach chairs to the beach, is that any more difficult than measuring how close together people are? If we're trying to tell people that they need to separate, it's kind of seems to me like it's 6 of one and half dozen of the other if we're trying to monitor whether people are social distancing at the beach compared to whether they're lugging beach chairs and coolers down to the beach. That would be the part of it that I would see being easier to enforce. I'm certainly not suggesting that our lifeguards or our police are down there saying, you know, you've been sitting still for 2 minutes, you need to get up and move. But I'm saying if we tell them not to bring the paraphernalia because it's an active beach only, isn't that easier to enforce?
I think we'd have to really think some of this stuff through. I mean, as it stands right now, we're out there dealing with, you know, people that will, you know, bring alcohol out to the beach, and that is, you know, a persistent challenge, and that's just and that's something that people typically try to hide from us. So, bringing on
no coolers, no alcohol.
Right. I mean, I think all of it is challenging, just in different ways. The social distancing part of it, we're seeing people do that on their own. At least that's been our experience so far, and that's been something that we can educate for right there on the spot, and that's what we've been trying to do. But I think all of these scenarios are challenging, frankly.
I would say that if you did something like like no umbrellas, I mean, I think that's kind of clear that could be something we could potentially, you know, enforce too. Then, you know, something that's more clearly laid out like that, perhaps.
All right, so I guess on the basis of what I'm hearing, I'm thinking that maybe this isn't a go forward plan unless, Ms. Brenner, you wanted to amend your motion in some way?
How
Yeah,
can
I
I
can't-
admit?
I can't support this either. I said I could, but after listening to the responses to the questions, I'm not in support of this.
So Ms. Dixon, have you removed?
So
Yes.
I could make an alternate motion. Let's see how this looks. What if our beaches are open until 10 o'clock every day and then closed after that?
Is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion. Again, ask the chief and staff, how can that be enforced?
I'm not sure I understand the motion. The beaches are already closed during the evening. Are you saying?
No, from 10 a.m. If you allowed the beaches to be open for active recreation in the morning and then close the beaches during the heavy traffic part of the day.
You still want to second that, Ms. Dixon?
Well, for discussion purposes, to see how that works.
I'm just gonna suggest our meeting starts in 20 minutes. So if you're not serious about this, the discussion probably shouldn't go forward. So are you?
Well, I'll withdraw that because there's a lot more that needs to be understood about that.
Right. Is there a second on the table? All right, it dies for lack of a second. So the motion on the table right now is Mr. Muldoon's motion to deny the item.
Can I just then ask a question related to that motion?
Yes.
All right, so we deny that motion, and then what remains, not in the form of a motion, but an administrative process, is the active enforcement that we talked about in the first part of the meeting.
Yeah, so that goes to Mr. Harp. So Mr. Harp, my understanding is we wouldn't be able to make such a motion only from the perspective that we can't direct police. So if the plan that had been laid out is to go into effect, that would basically be a direction from council hearing no other direction. That would essentially be a direction, but if we allowed the beaches to stay open, I think the consensus would be to move forward on that front. But we can't make a motion. Am I correct in that assumption?
That's correct.
I need some clarification, please.
All right, what clarification do you need, Mr.
Okay, so there's a motion on the table now. If that motion, and it's been seconded, if that motion fails, what is preventing one of us from making a motion to actually close the beaches for the next 3 weekends as proposed in the resolution? Is there something preventing us from doing that?
There's nothing preventing you from doing that. But if Mr. Muldoon's motion passes, then that would be.
I understand that. Yeah, thank you.
All right, then any further discussion? All right. Sorry, go
So
ahead.
could I just also clarify? So if we vote no on Kevin's motion, then we're saying that we do not agree with leaving the beaches open.
Basically, yes.
Unlimited.
Nope. No.
Well, hang on. That is essentially.
Yeah, I'm confused.
I'm gonna do this. It's okay. This is part of our council policies. It's the mayor's role to clarify. So let me clarify. So right now, Councilmember Muldoon's motion that is on the table is to deny the resolution. And if that passes, then the item would be done and we would go into. Hang on one second. I'll just say for this particular item, it would be done. And what would go into effect is the consensus that I believe staff has understood in terms of going forward with the plan that staff laid out earlier. So you're not voting against it. You would be only voting against the motion to deny the item on the beach openings. Does that clarify it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Understood.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, then what we'll do is we'll poll. So the motion on the table is a motion to deny the resolution. We'll start.
I'm sorry, Mayor, it's an emergency ordinance, not a resolution.
I apologize. Thank you very much. An emergency ordinance. Thank you, Lonnie. All right, so we'll move from left to right. Mr. Herdman.
I vote no.
Okay, Ms. Dix, I'm sorry, Mr. Muldoon. Dixon,
Yes.
Ms. Brenner,
I absolutely vote no and wage an active protest from my district for not implementing some protections for them.
okay. Mr. Duffield,
Yes.
Mr. Avery? You're muted.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm a yes as well, so the motion passes 5-2. All right, just a moment. Mr. Harp, I assume that I still need to do the public comment on non-agenda.
That's right.
All right, do we have any public comment on non-agenda? To our phone lines, do we have any public comment on non-agenda items? Give me just a moment, folks. Sorry. All right, we do have one call. Okay. All right. Okay, go ahead.
Hello, council members. My name is Wayne Penn. I live on Seashore Drive, a homeowner since 1963, born and raised here. So I consider myself quite an expert on living in Newport Beach in the district on Seashore. I've just been watching the council meeting here, and I'm a little stunned, I think, to see what just went down, but maybe I don't understand exactly what the vote
So this is on
for.
non-agenda. So if you're calling on what we just voted on, that would be out of, that would not be within the context of non-agenda public comments.
Very well. Well, I'm going to throw my vote in for closing the beaches, and I'll save all my speeches for later.
All right,
Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right, we don't have any further public comments, so we are going to stand adjourned, but just before we do that, hang on a second, before we do that, what is Mr. Harp, and maybe Ms. Leon, what should we do here with the fact that we should have started closed session 15 minutes ago?
I think we'll probably go ahead and get started with the next meeting and then break for closed session. We'll probably be a little bit late coming back for the regular meeting.
Sorry, say that again.
I think we should just go ahead and start the regular meeting, and then we'll break for closed session, and then we'll probably be a little bit late coming back out of closed session.
All right, so we'll have to shut this down, bring it back up, and then keep going, or how do we do that from a technology standpoint?
And if you can give me a minute or two to change over the meeting on the system.
I think from a technology standpoint, I would think we'd be able to just stay on here and roll into the next, into regular meeting to just open up the regular meeting.
Correct, but if you could just adjourn officially, then I can start the next meeting.
Okay, all right, then I'm going to adjourn officially.
Thank you.